All right, hello everyone. Today we're gonna go over some the darker side, no IP skip, no outfit route tutorial, and I'm BP. I'm a former darker record holder, so I hope I still know what I'm talking about. I don't know if I'm the best person to make this video, but hopefully it'll at least cover the basics and all that stuff. So what we're gonna take a look at a sample run of the route, and I'll go over and commentate any route adjustments or easier movement that I think beginners might find more friendly. And I think we'll just get right into it. Throughout the run, I'll also explain some resources and stuff to actually make your own darker side route if you want to make something easier or struggling with a particular moon. So I'll showcase those tools at the end once I've explained how the route works and showcase what the actual route looks like. There's also some good PowerPoints like this guy right here that'll go over the orders of all the moons and stuff. As you can see, we have like how the kingdom that we're in and the number of slides that we're playing in, and then they list all the moons and stuff and all the vague movement that you have to do with all of it. But we can talk about that stuff later. I think it's better to just go right into the run and then talk about this stuff later. So let's get into it. Okay. So we start off by doing some safety DSTA. There is no actual seed abuse necessary to use in this run. However, in case you make a mistake later on in the run, it is often a good idea to set this up. So the beginner and intermediate route definitely will showcase that. And I believe Dylan, this run's done by Dylan, by the way. Dylan is a very nice, very good darker side runner. And was kind enough to record this video recently with one of the most up-to-date beginner routes. So yeah, I'll probably be pretty quiet throughout this whole video, but I'll comment when I see fit, and we'll just watch and learn. Let me know if the audio can be increased or something, by the way. I guess right off the bat, it's actually important to note a few things about movement. So in general, we're going to see a lot of spin pounds and stuff from Dylan because he's a pretty advanced runner and we didn't want him to really vastly alter how he plays. So stuff like the spin pounds, that spin throw roll cancel right there, and all this sort of stuff, you don't exactly need to do that. You can substitute most of this stuff with just a normal start of a roll by clicking the Z button and clicking Y. You see he just did that right after the lever there. You don't need to do stuff like this like hydrophobia. You can just roll over there and capture the toad. Sorry, the toad. The frog. I guess that's not too bad of a mistake anyway. But lots of this stuff you can just sort of make a little bit slower and easier. By doing long jumps, rolls, or just ending rolls a little bit quicker. And yeah. So right there, important to note that getting checkpoints is going to be very essential throughout this run. The PowerPoint will show you very clearly where all of them are and which ones are necessary. That one in Cap is one of the most commonly forgotten ones and very, very important. You need to get that checkpoint in order to progress and do things later in Cap 2, so make sure you don't forget that. But that's the end of Cap. It's very standard, almost exactly the same as any percent, with the one exception that you get the checkpoint at the end. So things to remember in Cap are get that checkpoint and go fast, I guess. That's about it. Just get the checkpoint. There's not much more to it. But going into Cascade, I actually don't know how the beginner route is formatted. I'm more familiar with the advanced route. However, it should be very similar to any percent, if not exactly the same, and you have the option to do DSS or not to do DSS. Either way, the route will end up exactly the same as any percent. So just do what you're comfortable with. For darker side, I do not recommend doing DSS because if you're watching this video, it's likely that you're a beginner, and that is not a significant time save and will lead you to resetting the run way more often than you should for such a long category. So don't do DSS, but I guess if you're consistent at it because you do KFR or something, maybe go for it. Alright, coming up here is a trick that you're going to want to be comfortable with no matter what any percent speedrun you're doing. It's Dino Skip. So in Darker Side, you will either do this trick once or twice. And essentially what you do, you're going to take the dinosaur, go over to a trampoline, and bounce on it. So Dylan's wandering his way over here, bounces on the trampoline, and jumps up here. He does it a little bit risky. I would recommend doing a cap throw before diving onto this platform. Instead, he just sort of YOLOs it and dives immediately. But this trick is just something that requires practice. There's not much of a way around it. It's not too hard, and it's a very big time save, so I would highly recommend learning that. Again, you can make it easier by throwing Cappy, or you can even do a rainbow spin if you think you're very far away. And rainbow spins work essentially by when you throw Cappy, whenever Cappy returns to you and you press the A button, you will do a little rainbow spin, as long as you haven't done one previously. So you can only do one for every time you're in the air. So that's a way you can make that jump even easier if you think you're low. So also notice there that Dylan grabbed a lot of coins. Coins are relatively important in this run. You get a lot of shot moons. However, if you're careful about actually collecting coins, it shouldn't be a huge problem. So just get as many as you can without losing time. Madame Brood is a very good example of that. Another thing you might have noticed is that he was doing the fast strat for Madame Brood. That's also another thing that's not too difficult. There's a few easier ways of doing it. I think that doing a down throw is the easiest way to do it, but either way, yeah. So here Dylan does chest clip. You don't need to do this. Simply just stay inbounds like he accidentally does here, or just go for chest clip for fun, and if you miss, it's no big deal. He's flubbing this movement just a little bit, but that's okay. This is a really good backup for the trick. If you don't make it up from the center area, just go around and throw Cappy to get a Cappy return jump, and then you will make it up atop. Okay, so Sand Kingdom. Sand Kingdom is up next. Things to think about in Sand Kingdom are not coming to me yet, but I should say things to think about for Cascade Kingdom. Cascade is exactly the same as any percent. Just make sure you get the chest moon and not the atop the high cliff moon, and then you're golden. So actually going into Sand Kingdom, one thing to note is that a clip is, I won't say required, but speeds up this kingdom a lot. So this route will showcase IP clip, as it's called. However, it's not technically necessary, and there will be resources linked in the description for things to do if you are incapable of doing IP clip. So as you can see here, Dylan is planting the seed. We'll collect it later when we come back to sand. And then we get this bird. If you miss it, there will be backups. You're able to get it later, so he gets it now after this first moon. You can change the order of these first 3 moons if you want to. I think they're listed in a different order on the PowerPoint. But right now we go into Rumble Room. So every time you exit the loading zone, the bird will reset to its original position. So if you're too slow and just mess up after planting the seed, you can exit this pipe and then get the bird afterwards. So it's not a huge deal if you miss. So now Dylan rolls over to Toasterana Ruins and is going to set up Dram. So important thing to note about Dram in Darker Side is if you miss, or opt not to go for it because you're not consistent, then it is actually faster just not to get it in the first iteration of Sand. Instead, you just come over here and do platform clip immediately. And another thing to note, if you don't want to do platform clip, you just immediately go, drop through the sand there, grab the spinning moon, exit through the pipe, and then talk to the Sphinx. The route is exactly the same, you just don't do platform clip. I don't really want to pause and rewind, but that's all there is to it. Then, as soon as you're done with the Sphinx, you exit the Sphinx and then do this route as normal. Question from the chat. Should we do platform clip at the day or night like 04, dude? That just depends on the route you're doing. What's showcase is the fastest route for beginners. So this is the best route if you are not doing IP skip or anything else like that. So something small to note in this little area here, you can speed it up a little bit by manipulating the camera when you enter the pipe. If the pipe is centered if the camera is centered when you enter the pipe, you'll save a little bit of time on the camera because it doesn't have to pan over to look the right direction when Mario does it. That's a little bit harder to explain. You kind of just have to do it and watch some other runners do it. Dylan messed it up a little bit there, but that's okay. Just around like a half a second time loss, but good to note whenever you're entering pipes in this game. It's also fun to try to collect every single one of those coins. It's not at all necessary, but it's a fun little mini game. Only missing one is really good. These coins are good to get, but you don't need to worry too much about getting all of them, and that goes for most of the coin stacks throughout this run. The main way that we're going to get coins is by collecting Luigi hint arts. Those give you 200 coins each. Don't do that Sharane bounce, just wall jump and then cap throw dive up to the top. Not very necessary to do that, but I understand why Dylan does it since it's just so ingrained in his muscle memory, but that's an easy way to make it a little bit safer without losing hardly any time. Up next we have Neo Yggdrasil's favorite boss, Harriet. At the beginning of the fight you roll over where Dylan does to manipulate the cycles a little bit, but ultimately as long as you're beating the boss by knocking the bombs back and all that, you're going to be not losing too much time. So now's a good time to talk about the beginner sand route without clips. Essentially the thing that changes is after you enter the Tostarena ruins and are doing Dram, you'll immediately go up to the top of the kingdom with the story move. So enter the 2D section and then go up to the top. What I would do, I would collect that story move, and then I would go over to the shards area using the bullet, collect that story moon. You'll have to find your own movement for this because I don't have a good demonstration. Then, as soon as you're done with that Shards Moon, warp back to Tostarena Tower, and then roll over to the Inverted Pyramid and enter as normal. Just get those 2 moons, and then continue the route as normal. Don't worry about adjusting the route at all. So, returning to this route, though, you saw Dylan just pay for the Jaxie. Jaxie will be used a lot extensively in Sand 2. So, make sure you purchase that. Very important to remember. And then he gets the Slots Moon, and we'll exit the slots very shortly. I guess another thing that's important to mention is one of the big parts of Darker Side is that once you complete the any % portion of this game, you're going to be revisiting almost every single kingdom for extra moons that are unlocked once you beat the game and unlock a moon rock. So a lot of what we do in the first part of Darker Side is just preparing for that later part where we grab a bunch of moons really quickly. So if you think we're missing a moon that's really fast at the beginning of the run, that's likely just because we're getting it later. So trust the route documents and trust what Dylan does, but if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask in the Discord. So no need to take movement as fancy. One thing to touch on is there's no need to take movement as fancy as Dylan's doing it. Right there at the beginning of the hole, he did a pretty risky spin pound that just sends you off at a very nice angle to do the rest of the movement really fast. Just do a long jump. It's really not that much slower. It's a lot easier, and you're very unlikely to die. Same goes for the stuff on the ice. Just take it really slow and be careful. Another thing there, you don't need to do that sort of bounce off the flower there. You can take the flower up to the top, play it a little bit safe, and then long jump from the top. That's what we do in All Moons. It's really not that much slower and gets you some extra coins. You don't need those coins, but just important to know that it's very possible to adjust the movement that is seen by other runners to make it just a little bit better and slower. We don't need these coins, correct. Comment from chat. So important thing to note in this boss fight is obviously don't die. However, it will be made faster if you go across the arena to the other side in between each phase. That is why Dylan goes from one side to the other. Then he tries to manipulate the hand so that it breaks an ice cube as close as possible to where the fist starts moving. That way he loses as little time as possible there as well. Explain the hand thing, don't shake twice on the first phase. Good point. So Neo is talking about, on the very first phase with the hand, it's very tempting just to shake a bunch because the hand moves faster when you shake. However, notice how Dylan gets 2 spins with the hand on that last phase and on the second phase. That is only possible if you only spin 1 time on the first phase. So, important to remember, only spin 1 time on the first phase, and then you can go crazy on your later phases. Good call from Neo. So important thing to note before exiting Sand. We are going to want to talk to the tourist. It's incredibly important. The tourist is a recurring character that comes up later in the run and gives you a lot of free moons. It's really easy to just globe. Make sure you talk to this guy first. You don't get any moons, you just talk to him, then go globe on the Odyssey. So always make sure you do that. And we actually have another really important decision to make throughout the run coming up right now. It is very important to do wooded before lake. Now that I'm saying that, I realize it's almost 100% true. I highly doubt we're not going to, but the backup for doing lake first is not super difficult. But just remember, wooded before lake. Wooded before lake. Okay, yes, wooded before lake. Sorry for going back on that. That's probably not a great thing to be uncertain about. So coming up here is something that you're probably going to want to be familiar with prior to starting your first run. So we're going to immediately enter the deep woods, which is not particularly challenging. However, it's pretty dark. So if you have like a dark monitor or something, sometimes it's easy to get lost and forget where you are. So Dylan is going to showcase the best way to do deep woods movement. He's going to do it a little bit fast, so I'll explain how to make it a little bit more safe right here. He's very comfortable capturing this tree, then rolling over to a timer challenge move. If you're slow on capturing the tree, or you fall into the wrong part of Deep Woods, you notice that Dylan fell right next to the tree. If you fall in a different area and need to go over to the tree, you can get this timer challenge moon he's getting right now later. So save this moon for later, just hit that nut, and then find the dinosaur. So Dylan is now going over to this nut. Honestly, I might go back and just do this and watch this Deep Woods a second time. But basically, he now captures the dinosaur by using this nut and then goes over to the rest of Deep Woods. So as long as you're able to do that, it's pretty convenient and simple. But just make sure that you enter at the right spot and capture the dino and then go around and collect these 3 moons. There's the first 2, and the third one will be around where we exit the Deep Woods. So here's the final moon. At this point, if you were slow, you would collect the timer challenge now, then come over and exit the deep woods using this beanstalk. At this point, I missed something important as chat is telling me, so I'm going to go back a little ways and cover that again. Oh man, of course. Okay. So here, we're entering the deep woods. We don't immediately fall here because that will spawn us at an incorrect, inconvenient spot. Instead, we roll over and enter over at this area. So notice how he rolls twice to get some extra momentum, then vectors down to this end. It is good, it is really important to enter in the right spot of deep woods. Dylan is confident in where he goes, but if you're ever not sure, cap bounce and then dive to get a little bit further to make sure you're entering at the right spot. And the right spot will be shown right here. Right here. You fall by this tree so that you can just immediately spin pound and roll over to the capturable tree for the moon. So you can also long jump and hug the wall as Chad has said. Correct. So now deep woods proceeds as mentioned. If you feel slow or unconfident with your movement, when you get to this nut, simply grab it and then go get the dino immediately, and then get the timer challenge later. And this brings, at that point, we're brought to the end of deep woods again. So we're here, we get the timer challenge, and then we move on later. This is a part of the run that requires a little bit of practice to do well, but if you go a little bit slower, it's not the end of the world either. So coming up here is this moon. If you're comfortable with nut clip, feel free to go to gate skip. Go for gate skip. I don't believe Dylan will be doing it in this run. He did get nut clip. Oh, he is doing gate skip. Interesting. So if you're not comfortable with gate skip, which you probably are, then drop down as Dylan does, unintentionally. Grab this lever in first person. First personing will let you open the gate a little bit quicker, and then you can come over and grab this uproot. So a question from the chat, do you have a sample SMO scene that you can use for sample movement? That's something that I wanted to add, but I don't have enough monitors currently to set that up. So we're going to have to deal with my explanations. However, I do think that that's not a terrible thing. One of the most important things about running Darker Side is having the ability to sort of come up with your own movement that you're comfortable with. It's a very, very free-form category compared to something like any %. So you need to sort of be able to figure out, okay, this isn't working for me. Here's how I can make it some way that does work for me. So now Dylan's going for Flower Road skip. I would not recommend this. This is about a 3-second time save. You can also long jump instead of doing a roll cancel there. Just simply press the P switch and then go across and then grab this moon in the best way that you feel most comfortable with. That's another spot where long jumping is good instead of rolling. At this part of the run, dying is really costly, so I would play it a little bit safer if you're just beginning. Also, when this becomes a YouTube video, please ask any questions in the comments. I'll answer them as best as I can, and then all of the resources used to create this video will be linked in the description. Foremost, the Mario Odyssey Discord, and that's the best place you can go to answer any questions. So being showcased right now is the Spirit fight. It's a very easy fight, but if you don't know the strategy, it's not the most easy. Dylan is throwing Cappy backwards to make sure Cappy hits him when he returns, and then bounces on his head immediately after. Another way you can do this is by waiting for him to start throwing, jumping, throwing Cappy to knock his hat off, then landing on top of him. Either one of those is a fast way to do it. Dylan showcased the fastest one that is also fairly simple. I'd recommend doing that. However, if you're struggling with it, there's an alternative that I just described. So unlike Sand Kingdom, where we did the entire world peace sequence and then exited the kingdom, we're actually going to be exiting Wooded now. We have exactly 16 moons, which satisfies the requirements to leave, so we are exiting and going to be completing the peace, the final Torque Drift boss fight later. This is not optimal in any other kingdom, but don't panic if you're ever confused by the PowerPoint. You are supposed to leave now. So now we're headed to Lake Kingdom. The immediate thing and the main change from the beginner 80% route is we do not start with on the lake shore. This is easy to forget, and if you get on the lake shore early, it's okay. But it's faster to immediately go and capture the zipper and then continue with the run. So the rest of this route should look very familiar if you run any percent before. You're just going to capture this cheap, go around the rest of the kingdom, then finish off with Rango. The high-level route does do lake clip nowadays. However, this is not a large time save at all and requires a different Lake 2 route, so it will not be covered in today's video. If you have questions, again, consult the Mario Odyssey Discord and the resources that I will show at the end. So here's the Rango boss fight. The fast strat for this boss is a little bit hard. I would not recommend starting with a spin pound like Dylan did. I would just do a jump dive, then jump twice and dive onto his head. This is something you'll likely need to practice in order to get consistent at, but once you figure out the way to backflip and ground pound on his hat, it'll be easy to figure out. That's another one of the things along with Deep Woods that you might just have to practice a little bit before you're comfortable with it. Another thing 12.7 mentioned in chat, it's important to grab the checkpoint before entering the Rango boss fight. So here, this is why we save the first moon in the beginner 90% lake route for later. We have to look at several of these hint arts throughout the run in order to actually spawn the moon to get later in post-game whenever we revisit these kingdoms. So we save this moon for later because it's a little bit faster to get at the end, right before grabbing the Odyssey. So make sure you look at that hint art in Lake 1. So I suppose now is a decent time to cover what to do if you accidentally select Lake first. If you ever accidentally select Lake first, what you want to do is at the end of Wooded 1, there is a hint art in some of the trees at the back behind the shop. Look for that hint art and look at it, and then leave Wooded. You need to get the hint art moon in Sand 2, and it will mess up the painting chain order, and you won't be able to get it. So look at the hint art in Wooded 1, or just get a backup moon. Both are viable options to back up. So we're about to enter the Cloud fight. This is very similar to any percent, and there's plenty of tutorials on how to perform Cloud Kingdom well, so I will not be covering that. Instead, I'd like to comment on backup moons in general, since I've started talking about it. If you ever forget a moon, it's important to understand what moon you're missing. So if you see in the PowerPoint, oh shoot, I accidentally missed a hint art moon or something. Hint art moons, missing them are fine. However, you need to make sure that you get an extra and make sure that the moon you're missing isn't important for Toadette. Throughout the run, we're going to be getting moons that contribute to achievements, and then getting a certain number of that type of moon will give you an extra moon from Toadette later on. So, for example, if you miss an 8-bit moon because you die in Lost Kingdom, then you're going to need to get an extra 8-bit moon as a backup, otherwise you're going to lose out on an extra Toadette moon. So I'll cover these when they come up more frequently throughout the run, but the important ones to note are Timer Challenge moons, 8-bit moons, Captain Toad moons, and Goombet moons. I'm actually curious what Lost Route they're going to do, because there's a few variations, and I don't think that the Advanced Route is too difficult. But up there, right there is Meme Tree. That's another any percent trick. Important to be good at it for Darker Side, but just do it the same way you would for any percent. Alright, so he goes up top, grabs this checkpoint, and then grabs the butterfly. Yeah, Advanced Round does a jump from the glide on moon to the fuzzies. Okay, so there Dylan does one of the rainbow spins I described earlier. This is something I didn't know for a while when I began, so I'll belabor the point just a little bit. When Cappy returns to you and you press A or B, you will do a rainbow spin. It'll stall you in the air and give you a little bit more distance on jumps. Oh no, Dylan died. This is actually a good thing. This will put you back up to the top of the kingdom where you want to be. In order to do this, however, make sure you do not collect the checkpoint at the bottom of the kingdom. You want to be able to warp back up to the top, so don't grab that checkpoint. So, important note, right there you might have noticed Dylan go up in right next to Glydon. If you do not go right next to Glydon, he will steal Cappy. So, make sure you do that before doing anything else. Then he breaks open the cage with the Trapedal, and then proceeds with the rest of the route. Oh no, he died again. Oh wait, I forgot. Again, don't get any extra checkpoints. We want to be at the top of the kingdom. It's a very good thing. Now we're going to take Glydon and go over to this moon. You'll notice that this is a very easy time save. Dylan goes over to the left a little bit, then vectors over to the right, and then does this. And now we're right by the Odyssey and good to go. So right there, Dylan grabs a checkpoint. This movement so far is exactly the same as any percent, including grabbing that checkpoint. But it's important to note that when we're doing a Darker Side speedrun, we need, I believe, 40 checkpoints throughout the run. So you can do this without losing any time. There are a lot of really fast checkpoints throughout, especially when you go through paintings. It's really easy just to throw Cappy out and collect a painting checkpoint if you ever think you're low. But make sure you're collecting them throughout the run. Confirmation from chat that you do need exactly 40 checkpoints, but if you go over, it's fine. You're just losing some time. You need at least 40 checkpoints is the correct way to say that. So Dylan's doing a trick to speed up the cycle in this room, and he hits the exact same cycle as you normally do. I would just do whatever's comfortable for your level of movement. There are plenty of any percent tutorials that will cover this room. We're now approaching the Mech Wiggler boss fight. There's also not much to talk about in here. However, I will say one thing that makes things safer in the second phase. Essentially, whenever the Mech Wiggler stops, there are going to be bulbs that spawn and then shoot at you. The easiest way to do this fight, and with the least risk of 3-cycling, 3-cycling occurs when you do not hit all of the Mech Wiggler's bulbs in time, is by shooting 4 of those bulbs, not all 5. Essentially, when all 5 bulbs have finished shooting at Mario in the tank, you will the Wiggler will start getting ready to do a 3rd cycle. So you'll see Dylan start at the left from where they spawn and then go to the right. He shoots 3 bulbs, and now it's taking a while for these last 2 bulbs to start firing at him. This gives Dylan a lot of time before the Mech Wiggler stops moving to actually do the fight correct. So shoot the bulbs in the order that they spawn, and that will cause the most time delay between when they actually start firing at you. I'm not sure if I explained that as well as I could have, but there are also likely any percent tutorials that cover that sort of knowledge. This is reminding me, and if somebody could remind me in chat once I'm done with this, it would also be good to link any percent tutorials for supplementary help for main game things like the City Hall cycle and the Mecha Wiggler cycle. Just a mental note. So now we're going into Day Metro. Quick thing to note, in any percent you would get the Girder Moon there. We're going to get that moon later because getting it now causes this taxi to be in an even worse position than it is right there. So we're going to start off Metro by planting a couple of seeds. These will be collected later on in the run. Oops. This movement's pretty fun. So at this point, it doesn't really matter which order you collect the last 3 musicians in, as long as you collect this guy first. But I believe the most common order is to go collect the one on the far off island, then the one in the city, and then the one at the top. But I don't know what Dylan's going to do. So one thing to note here is later on we're going to be visiting this park again. That's why we don't get the moon in the wreckage. However, it is still fine to get the moon in the wreckage now if you ever struggle with a later on bird cycle that occurs in the park later. I think it's probably better just to do a slower bird cycle and get the wreckage later, but that is an option. It is okay to get the wreckage moon early. Important thing to note, make sure that seed plants in the pot before talking to this gentleman. If the seed does not pot, you'll have to plant it later, which is a pretty noticeable time lapse. However, I'll tell you guys when to do so if it does happen. It is faster to get wreckage later. Just check. So underneath Dylan right now is the Luigi hint art. If you're ever feeling uncomfortable about coin count, get that. You should not be struggling, but just in case, that is a very fast backup 200 coins. This room is a little bit weird. It's possible to make it easier if you do long jumps and stuff instead of all these weird funky triple jumps. But important thing to note is don't hit this green thing. If you hit this green thing, the movement to get up to this moon is a lot more complicated. Just let it be, and then just do the rest of the movement simply. Comment from Esmo Ludo in chat. Getting the last musician, the one on the top of the building, it's important to note that if Mario falls all the way down from the top of the building to the hint art, I also should have mentioned that you need to get that hint art to get later in Lake 2. But if you do not throw Cappy before landing, you'll take fall stun. Minor time loss, not the end of the world, but just remember, get the hint art before talking to the musician. There's not much to note about Festival. You want to collect as many coins as you can, but again, coins are not super problematic in this run, so it's best to focus on being fast. For example, in this room right here, you'll notice Dylan jumps around. That's because it's faster with the way gravity works around that spinny section to go there. The other thing that's different from just a fast festival here is you collect the moon in this pipe up top. It's a very quick moon, and just make sure you do it. He crouches to see at his speed. So, you do not need to get the coins on the other side. Just stay on one side, it's faster, less acceleration is required. Right now, Dylan is doing a sort of camera manip to prepare for the next room. He turned his camera to look at these barrels, and it sets things up a little bit better. I don't think this is at all necessary. I think that you can generally handle this room a lot, and taking a damage boost right here, this will allow you to be invincible until until you're at the very end of that wire. So taking damage there means you don't have to worry for the entire rest of the thing. That's something that comes with feel, but don't stress too much. If you're at 3 health entering that section, you're going to be A-okay. So Metro is also our first instance of actually collecting a tourist moon. Remember, in Sand 1, we talked to the tourist. Now, we're going to go down to the main island and talk to that tourist and collect a moon. This is when we collect the secret Girder Tunnel moon. And also, if you realize that, oh shoot, I did not remember to plant the seed at the beginning of Metro, this is where you can go roll past the taxi and then go plant the seed again. Once you've done that, warp back to the Odyssey, and then you're good to go. At this point in the run, we have the decision to go to Snow or Seaside first. We choose to go to Snow first here. It is faster and doesn't require us to menu. Snow is a interesting juncture in the run. I say that because it is made significantly faster if you're able to do roll cancel Eclipse. I think that before you start doing darker runs, this is a good thing to learn and a good skill to be able to do. However, if you cannot, The alternative is going into each room and then just collecting the 2 moons in each room so that you unlock the main boundable part of the story as usual. But before that, we look at the hint art and collect this very first moon to start off the kingdom. So up next, we're going to enter the shop, and I believe if you're not doing Snow Clip, you will do this later on and just proceed with the route as normal. But this is going to be the clips route, and I would recommend that. And if you are looking for the no clip route, that will be included in the resources in the description of this video. It is in the Darker Side channel of the Mario Odyssey Discord. Just ask and somebody will let you figure that out. But in any case, no matter what route you're doing, you're going to grab these next 2 moons. Then if you're not doing clips, you're going to start after this moon, collecting all of the 4 different story moons and then going on. So here, Dylan misses the moon clip and does the backup screen clip. This is the most consistent, easily retryable backup. He's going to mess up, I think, 3 times, but essentially you just roll cancel into this wall and you'll be able to clip through. Another alternative is you can go over to the right on the top and clip through the boxes. That one is very easy, but does require you to be able to consistently hit a roll cancel. If you miss the roll cancel, you're going to break the boxes, then have to enter the shop in order to reset them. This is slow, so screen clip is generally regarded as the best alternative. So up next is Bound Bowl. Bound Bowl, you essentially just go throughout. Stravos96 has a good Bound Bowl tutorial if I remember correctly, and it's also something that's really hard to teach, so I won't go into detail on how to do it fast, but essentially just there are a few types of bounds. You can hold A for a long time, that'll give you a bigger bound, and if you time an A press once you land, you're going to get one of those yellow sparks, and that'll give you a little bit more distance. But equally importantly is not holding the A button. You'll get a slightly lower bound. This is just something you need to get a feel for. 51:57. And then also it's often guessed in chats what time you're actually going to get in these. Really quickly though, I wanted to cover something that Ludo mentioned. So if you do decide not to do the clips route, you are only going to get 8 moons total from the story moons. In post-game, once you've hit the moon rock, you unlock an extra moon in each of one of those sub-areas. Or not sub-areas, but rooms with the story moon. So, if you just normally do all 4 of the rooms, 1, you're going to have to do Ice Rango, which sucks. You don't want to do Ice Rango. And 2, you're only going to get 8 moons. So that means you're going to need to get 1 extra moon on top of the moons that are normally in this route. And 12-7 mentioning in chat, if you also don't do IP clip in Sand, that will get you the 1 extra moon you need. Because of the extra story moon that you do not normally collect in Darker Side. So to make this next part of the run quicker, you can grab Cappy back from the top of that scarecrow. Dylan doesn't because he's very confident in collecting this bunny without Cappy, but even there he messes up a little bit. I would recommend just grabbing Cappy there to make sure you can get this bunny. It's a little bit finicky. I would just jump, spin, throw, dive as Dylan did, and then get it that way. How much time do we win with Snowclip? It's a big time save to the point where I would just highly recommend doing it. You could probably fail it for multiple minutes and still save time overall with it. In chat, I'm seeing some contestants of between like 3 to 5 minutes saved by that one clip. I think the route just works better and is more fun if you do it as well. I would recommend learning either box clip or screen clip. So up next is Seaside. Seaside is relatively straightforward. We just want to fight Brigadier Mollusk Lancer, the third Dauphin of Bubblain, and then exit the kingdom, and then that will give us, since we are required to get the 4 story moons and 3 boss moons, that will get us almost all the way there. So we're just going to collect all the moons that are fast along our path in order to get there. So an important thing to know, though, for Gushin science is if you are grabbing a story moon and a Gushin is too close to the story moon when you're collecting it, it will despawn. It's oftentimes very important to maintain your Gushin's health when you're doing this category. So keep that in mind so you're not despawning your Gushins. It'll make the movement a lot more challenging. It's also at this point in the run that we're going to potentially be making use of our safety DSTA. From this perspective, the back right pot, not the back left one that it was potted in, so he would be okay, but the back right pot takes 1 hour and 15 minutes to grow. This is a problem if you do not hit DSTA and reach Seaside 2 in under 1 hour 15 minutes, which is pretty common. So you want to set DSTA for about 1.5 hours before your DSTA time. So for the United States, 1.5 hours before 2 a.m. is 12:30 a.m. I think it's different in other countries. Maybe it's not, but yeah. So there's an example of if we left the Gushin on the top platform, the Gushin would despawn. So here, we don't care if the Gushin despawns. We actually want it actively to despawn because we want to capture this Gushin later. So we almost run into the moon with the Gushin. Make sure you grab that checkpoint. You'll be using it later. So we save this moon and we can get it either now or later. I should have mentioned that earlier, but whenever you are getting that notes moon, you do not need to grab it immediately. You can either grab it right there, it's a little bit slower, or you could grab it in the middle of the Brigadier Mollusk Lancer, the third Dauphin of Bubblain fight. So another thing to note about Gushin mechanics is Gushins will go a set amount of height higher than the original place that they were last set on the ground. So we touch down on that little rock there so that we have enough height to grab that Jetstream moon and then continue throughout the rest of the route. And then here, I don't know exactly what Dylan does, but he sets the Gushin down there and then talks to Captain Toad. He sets the Gushin down at a point such that when he spin pounds off this platform and talks to Toad, he'll be able to capture it later. This is a little bit tight and a little bit risky. So ways you can make it safer are after you grab the Toad, you can just cap throw dive off the side and then bounce on the Gushin's head, then grab the story moon, spin pound on this button, and then capture the Gushin. So, or after you get the story moon, you can immediately capture the Gushin and then continue with the move. So just be very careful. So another thing that was pointed out is that Gushins will refill either when you grab a moon or grab a checkpoint. We make sure, let me go back a little bit because I forgot to mention this. So at this point, the Gushin is captured and is low on water after coming all the way over here from the top of the kingdom. So we go through this checkpoint and it does a little refill animation. Now I have a bunch of water left. Now we go over to this point in the kingdom. Spawn this moon, don't collect it, then collect it with this Gushin to make sure we have enough water. Another way to make the Gushin not despawn at the Toad platform is just by dropping it on the Toad platform such that Captain Toad isn't scared of it. That's a little bit annoying because Captain Toad gets afraid of the Gushin. But that's another way you can make it a little bit safer. So here again, we're grabbing a moon with the Gushin so that it refills, and then that should give us enough juice to go over to this point. And when you uncapture a Gushin above the lava, it will create a little bit of a hole in the surface, so you can just mash ZR when you uncapture the Gushin, and then you're going to do a uncapture, then ground pound, and then just immediately be A-okay when you enter the hot springs. So I don't know if there's a very good tutorial for the Brigadier Mollusk Lancer, the third Dolphin of Boblaine fight, but first things first, you're going to want to grab this checkpoint, I believe. Yes. And I would touch down in the water before doing the rest of this movement. Dylan's playing a little bit risky by not doing so, but you're going to want to bop him on the head. Oh, interesting. I noticed something. Then hit him immediately at this sort of part here. So right in this area of the screen. I should back up just a little bit. So you want to fly up right in this little area between these two pegs. So fly up and then bop him on the head right here. If you miss, the fight will just be slower. It's not a huge deal, but yeah. Another thing that I noticed is that, so now you want to stay ahead of Mollusk. However, you don't want to stay too far ahead, otherwise Mollusk will stop moving. So it's good to keep an eye on the movements. That way you make sure you're not too far ahead. So now you push up a little bit here, and then track Mollusk's movements around here, and you should get boss clip. And unfortunately, Dylan misses a ground pound, but it will at least allow you to save some animations on the boss fight, and hopefully that'll work for you. I don't think there's a good boss clip tutorial out there, so hopefully that did a decent enough job of explaining. Once you've done that, on the very last hit of the fight, you can make sure you can stop Mollusk from moving by shooting down with the Gushin, and then immediately ground pounding, because once he's in his shaken animation, he will stop moving and you can ground pound and not be afraid of missing. And now we have Mollusk 5-head, the banger emote. Kerbis Big Brain. So for Seaside, it's important to learn Gushin mechanics, and it's important to learn boss clip, but if you mess up the boss, it's not the end of the world. So I guess while I'm thinking about it, one of the important things about Darker Side is that, in general, confidence with your movement will save you the most time, even if your movement is slow. It's easy to get into the sort of mindset like, oh shoot, I gotta be going really fast, balls to the walls all the time. This is not the best way to consistently go fast. It's a lot easier if you're just doing long jumps and very consistent strategies all around over the place. It's very easy to just consistently play and not bonk and not make a lot of big time losses. You want to not stop moving. You want to be moving at a consistent rate throughout the entire run. That's the goal. So in order to do this, you need to actually have some idea of where you're going at all times. So whenever you start a kingdom, you're like, okay, I want to capture these Goombas. Let's just get over there and do it as fast as I can. That can be with a long jump and then cap throwing and then capturing the Goombas. Or you can do what Dylan does and do a spin pound and then spin throw roll. It just depends on how comfortable you're feeling with your movement. Just have some sort of sense of what your abilities and comfort level is, and then execute as best as you can to that ability. So another example, Dylan knows he's high enough to actually make this jump here. If you don't think you're high enough, just do a ground pound jump. You're going to lose like half a second to what Dylan just did, but you're going to save a lot of time over just bonking there and then falling down. That's just general routing and tips for longer categories. We can do the Goombas in post-game. Oh, that's another recent route change. So it's also, there's a few older routes that do that Goomba Moon in the post-game. It's a little bit faster to do it in main game now, even with the Switch 2 load time changes. But since it's faster and about as easy, it is just going to be recommended that you do Goombet in main game. It also gives you an extra moon in main game luncheon, and normally main game luncheon is pretty hard to get all 18 moons. So if you miss a moon, then you're kind of cooked, and now you have a little bit of extra leeway here. So there, Dylan does some advanced movement. If you're feeling uncomfortable, go over to the left and use the fork to go over there. Same here. You can go up to the top of the kingdom, the top of like the tower, and make sure you don't fall into the lava. If you do fall into the lava, it's important to understand how lava bounces work. If you bounce on the lava, but Cappy's sitting there, and then you bounce on Cappy, you're going to be all safe. And then you can do some extra movement, try to set up another lava Cappy bounce, and then make it up to the top. But it's a lot safer if you either do a triple jump to the lower part of the wall, do a wall jump on the higher part of the wall before going up, or do a lot of things. You don't want to die there. It's not a fun death. Another thing that Dylan did, he got the checkpoint at the beginning of that section here, and he's going to get the checkpoint here. Make sure you get all of these. They're going to be important for later on. This is a fun sub area. I like this one. So I don't really need to comment on this movement. However, I like what Dylan does here a lot. He makes sure to be a little bit slower when you dive. That way you don't bonk somewhere. Because when you're doing movement where the camera hasn't quite caught up to Mario, it's very easy to go too fast and lose extra time because you're a bit disoriented. So playing that part a little bit safe is really good. But yeah. We'll use a checkpoint in the future. I don't know which checkpoints this route uses in the future, but it is just good to get those 3 checkpoints, meaning being the one in the plaza, the one by the lava bubbles on the ground, and then the one at Meat Plateau, just in case you use one of them later. Because you will warp to at least one of those later, and oftentimes, if you miss one, you can warp to the other one for safety. 12-7 telling me in chat you'll use the one by the Pandas. So, yeah. I just think those 3 are very important to get. And you're also going to use the one for sure in the plaza, unless you're doing Brunchin, which nobody's doing Brunchin. That is a crazy risky movement. I would long jump there instead of just rolling onto the timer challenge, but if you're comfortable with it. Actually, this is a good point. So at this point, this is important to practice. So if you're at all feeling remotely uncomfortable with any of these rolls, just throw in a long jump, make it safer. Honestly, I don't even know if I recommend rolling. I might even go as far to say, just take a freaking lava bubble and go over to this part of the area. Wait for the timer to be done and just take a lava bubble. I don't know. Ultimately, just find something that's comfortable for you in order to get over from the timer challenge to the top of that rock wall there. What Dylan did is the fastest and not that hard, but if you mess up, it's pretty costly and not a very fun mistake. That's another instance of just be confident in what you choose to do. So we're actually coming up on a kind of important thing to note for the run. So we're about to get a moon with a fire piranha plant. So throughout the darker side run, we're going to need to collect 35 captures. 35 is an important number. So in order to do that, we first... So I'm going to pause a little bit. And hopefully, let me make sure you guys can see my map pointer. Okay, you can't see my pointer. So we stand right here about before we kick the rock so that the piranha shoots a fire towards this left lantern here. Then it gives us a good angle to kick the rock into the mouth of the piranha so that we can spit it out and shoot this way. After you shoot with the piranha, you can hit it to go faster, but it's a little bit safer and better just to angle and then shoot forward. So, actually, the reason we captured that piranha plant back in the day, it was thought to be slower to do that. However, we need 35 captures throughout the run. So if you ever miss a capture, you need to get an extra one, otherwise you're down a Toadette Moon. And down a really fast Toadette Moon at that. So just make sure you're capturing that piranha, or if you're choosing not to capture it, you're getting it back. Very important. And here is the Cookatiel fight. I honestly like this fight a good bit. A lot of people don't, and that's fair. There's an invisible hitbox there that is hard to avoid, but you know what? I'm just gonna give up. I don't think I can explain this in the time. Basically, if you go faster, you're not gonna hit that, and or if you jump higher, you're not gonna hit that. There's just like a weird intermediary time of you're too fast or too slow and don't go high enough that you're gonna hit that, and it's very, very, very common for people like that. Yeah, and 12-7 mentioning in chat, good backup for captures is the letter M in Mario in Metro 2. Also, if you don't do scooter clip, you're going to get an extra capture by capturing the guy who controls the RC car. I honestly think that scoot clip is easier than controlling that frickin' person, but you know, there's a lot of captures you can get. Another good one is the they're all in Metro 2, I'm realizing, is just the manhole cover in Metro 2, but yeah. I think we have 19 moons here. We have 18. Oh, I know what happened. Okay, yeah. So, I think I misspoke a little bit earlier. We're still at 18 moons in Luncheon, and that's the exact number of moons we need to leave. This means if you do something by accident, like, it's very easy to accidentally kill the piranha plant when you're doing that moon earlier. That's okay. You can get that moon later. However, you need to remember to get piled on the salt at the beginning of Luncheon, like directly where Mario is facing, or the first moon you normally get an any percent, at the end of the kingdom if you do miss that piranha plant moon. Now we're moving on to Ruined. This is not any percent. We actually get this chest moon for one. You don't need any of these coins, and getting them is often a red herring because it makes this movement really weird. So you want to do a cap return jump off of that little ledge there and then come up. Or you can just line up a backflip and play it a lot safer. But that movement's weird, just be very safe there. But honestly, if you die, it only loses like 15 seconds. So there's information. So Dylan just showcased the spot for the coin Captain Toad hint art. That'll give you 200 extra coins to use throughout the run. You can also collect some of these hearts for a couple extra coins. This is just a part of the run where you want to make sure you remember those 200 coins. Otherwise, you end up like a legendary bald speedrunner back in the day, losing a world record to that. I don't know if it would have been a world record, but it was a pretty fast run. And yeah, like 12-7 said, the moderators will reject your speedrun if you don't collect that. That is untrue, however, it would be very silly not to collect that. Okay, Dylan. Okay, quick comment. Okay, I can't just only watch this like unbiasedly. Dylan, we gotta work on your ruin fights. What is going on here? I hope this was just a bad day. Like, anyway, and I can't be the one talking. I'm awful at this fight, but like, come on, Dylan, please. Okay. This guy's like top 10 or something. Okay, so we're entering Bowser's Kingdom now. This is going to be pretty similar to any percent with the caveat that there's a lot of fast moons to collect on the way through getting these story moons. So the general progression is very similar to any percent, unlike most other kingdoms, because you actually do want to collect peace in any percent, but we're going to get stuff like here. We're doing SPEEDRUN. So capture the bird, flick up to the top. If you just do that exact movement that Dilla did, you'll make it up in just a shake and then an extra shake at the top. And then boom, you can home in and you're golden. If you miss, a bird spawns at the bottom left right there, and you can capture it to boost up and it doesn't lose much time. So it's very important to collect this checkpoint. The movement becomes a little bit awkward, but you can just go up to the left if you want to be extra safe, or do what Dylan attempted to do and play it similarly to beginner 90%. But make sure you collect that checkpoint. Checking my recording really quickly, but looks good. This checkpoint is not required, but it's pretty easy to get. Another thing that I don't think I've mentioned yet, dive back is also not necessary, but makes it easier. Honestly, I'd also just recommend doing a slower new shards than this. I don't know. I think that old shards is pretty difficult and kind of annoying, but do whatever feels most comfortable for you there. Again, this is a situation where I would just be like, okay, find some movement that works fast and easily enough for you so that it ends with collecting the Pokio so that you can poke this whole moon and then go up to the top. That's the best way to navigate this section, and then you go over here, roll off the side, and get this. But, oh, I had something on my mind and I'm forgetting it. Oh, yes. Resources on checkpoints. I'll provide a list of a lot of the good checkpoints that you can get. The ones that are like a little bit of time loss. The ones that are just simply no time loss. The ones that are all required and all that sort of stuff. I think it's completely up to date. There might be a little bit of outdated information. But if you're ever confused about something, either ask in the Discord or just be safe and get all of the checkpoints you think you need. So here, Dylan opts to do Bowser Dram. This is not necessary. If you don't feel comfortable with this, just go around the side of the beginning, and you're okay with that. So collect that checkpoint, and then you're going to start using the Jizos. I don't know if Dylan will do Jizo Dram here, but one thing to note is after you spawn that moon, don't uncapture and capture that Jizo immediately, otherwise you won't be able to. So here's another dram called Value Dram, where you leave Cappy over here, then collect this moon. It's not that hard, so it's worth honestly trying in my opinion and seeing if you're okay at it, but it doesn't save much time. So if you're not feeling comfortable with it, just stay at the bottom and then collect that. Right there is another important checkpoint to collect, so just make sure whenever you're going throughout, you get most of the checkpoints in Bowser's. So Dylan also goes for Sarbomba. A great trick name, by the way. I like it a lot. Kind of silly. Goodness, I don't know how that worked, but, you know, I won't judge. Dylan is a good speedrunner. He knows what works. No Furriet. Good. I do not do Furriet either. This is an all moons runner thing. We're doing cap throws, so we don't really have time to set up stuff like Furriet. One thing I will note is it's a little bit more optimal to do Topper first in Darker Side, because it's easier to collect more coins when you do Topper first. So, very, very important. Just ignore the fact that I said that coins aren't that important throughout this speedrun, but I am a firm member of Topper First gang. Oh, there is actually something to mention about the brutal boss fight. One tip that I have when you're exiting them is I would recommend centering your camera. So if you center your camera at the end of your boss fights, you'll be facing directly forward towards the, I think directly northward. So you're just going to be looking towards the top of the arena. That means that when you spin pound directly to the left or right, you're going to be going directly towards the other arena. This is a lot more convenient because a lot of the times you're going to find yourself going just like some weird off direction, and that's never fun. Dylan collects that checkpoint too for no time loss. Whoops. So here's a little bit of an important piece of movement. So we want to break open this block moon, then immediately go over to Captain Toad. You don't need to do the weird roll cancel thing that Dylan did. Just make sure you break open the block, then go talk to Toad. And if you talk to Toad right about here where Dylan is standing, the camera will not pan, and generally camera panning in this game is a bad thing. Camera panning takes a little bit of extra time and is a little bit slow. So stand around there when you're talking to Toad after spawning this block moon, and then continue with the climb. Another thing that's important to note after this climb, it's very easy to autopilot. Yo, funny save, never seen that before. But it's very easy to autopilot and uncapture this Pokio when you get to the top of the wall. Don't do this. There is a moon back here that you get with the Pokio at the end of the wall. So a lot of the times it's easier to kill one or two of those spinies, but just do that, grab the moon, then continue. If you forget this one, don't bother trying to get it back. Just move on with your life and get a backup moon later on. I'll go over which moons are the best backup moons later on in the run, but that one is a really slow one if you forget it. Goodness. Oh, good point. Good point from Ludo. I was saying throughout the kingdom that to grab most of the checkpoints. This is true. However, if you grab the checkpoint in the middle of the climb area, as soon as we're done with mech, I'll go back and point it out. It'll make warping harder throughout the rest of the kingdom. So you want to skip that one. So here's a good example of a good Mecha Brutal fight. I'm going to pause here and go back to the checkpoint that you should skip. It's right here, this one right there. You'll notice Dylan walks right past it, doesn't go out of the way with the Pokio to grab it. Grabbing this checkpoint is bad. Do not grab this checkpoint. It will make warping throughout Bowser's 2 a lot more difficult. Yeah. I'll just fast forward through the cutscene to end this kingdom. Another thing to note at the end of this kingdom, before leaving, there is a very fast moon caught on the iron fence right here. Don't forget this one, but if you do, you'll be able to get it in Bowser's 2. So up next is Moon Kingdom. Moon Kingdom's a little bit interesting in this category because you do get moons, which is very, very different from any percent where you're just trying to go as fast as possible, but also because the beginning of this kingdom is a little bit weird. So I'll touch on the mechanics of how camera manipulation works. So if you're tilting the camera stick when you're walking down that ramp right there, you would be able to move the camera here. However, Dylan did not do that and can't, and now that makes this triple jump setup a little bit weirder. He manages it just fine, but if you're able to move your camera, you can look at where you're going and then grab this bunny just fine. So that's the easiest and best way to go about grabbing that bunny. It might be possible to do that with like a long jumping into it, but it's a little bit hard. And then another thing to know with this rock is, Dylan actually does not do this. Jumping and ground pounding on top of the second rock will almost always break the proper rock. So I would recommend jump ground pounding. I'm surprised Dylan does not do that. He did, however, take it very slow going into the rock, which will also allow you to be more confident that you don't break the rock. So make sure you grab 2 flowers before going over to do Moon Cave skip, and then you'll have enough speed to make it over to the rest of the kingdom. Very nice 2 wall jump Moon Cave skip. So here's another place where it's good to count your number of rolls. So just know what you're doing, know the number of rolls you do, then either roll cancel or stop rolling and do a triple jump, then go up to get the Spire Moon. There's a slightly faster way to get up this tower. There's actually a couple set optimizations you can do, but that's a totally fine way. This is another scenario where that movement is very awkward. Find something that works for you and just get to the top as quickly as you can. Even if it's just ground pounding a bunch of times. So I suppose this is a fine place to talk about this. Oh my gosh, Dylan, he's doing the single roll boost over. But tricks like this are hard to teach because most of it is just observing what somebody does and then slowing it down, then copying what they do. So one of the best features about YouTube videos, it's a little bit worse on Twitch, is that you can go a frame forward with period and a frame backwards with comma. So that's a really good way to slow down and look at what people are doing. And then you can also just go into half speed or quarter speed. So if you're ever trying to learn something, slow it down and then try to copy paste what somebody does. This is a really good skill to learn. And then along with just, okay, how can I adapt this to make it into something that I'm able to do? I think this is how I personally learned how to do this Bowser fight, for example, and what a lot of people do to actually learn this category and get to high level. It's harder to do as a beginner, but it's honestly a lot of fun because you kind of get a little bit more self-creativity and actual experience in coming up with strats yourself. But it's a difficult skill to learn. So. But from here on out, there is nothing different in Escape. There are no moons to collect, so we are just going to continue the rest of main game and move on to post-game. Post-game is the section of the run after shooting out of the wire, where we go through Mushroom 1 and the rest of the painting chain in order to get a bunch of moons and all that sort of jazz. No 2DSS from Dylan, unfortunately. I definitely expected that of him. That's actually another good thing to note. So the Mario Odyssey rules allow you to take a time attack break for 15 minutes every 2 hours of time that pass. So in a darker side run, generally they're going to be around between 3 and 4 hours long. If you're beginning, it might be above 4 hours. If it is above 4 hours, you'll have 30 minutes of break time. If it's between 3 and 4 hours, you'll have 15 minutes of break time. I would advocate just taking the 15 in case you randomly have like a really good run, but important to take breaks and stay hydrated. Throughout this commentary, I've been sure to drink a lot of water. I always, when I'm doing runs, I have a water bottle or a glass of water or something, and then some snacks sitting out around. And then there's a lot of cutscenes in the run. It's good to stand up, look around. As long as you're not constantly sitting and have some motion, that's really what the human body was designed for. So make sure you're just not playing the game. It'll help you throughout the run feel better and then also just play better. But that's it for main game. So if you're coming to run this category having only played any percent, this is where things will really start to get different. If you're following this route to a T, you're going to have 144 moons at the Odyssey, and you'll be able to double check that number at the top left here. This is how you can check, okay, shoot, I'm a moon down. What did I miss? What can I get as a backup? Can I get the moon that I missed as a backup? That sort of stuff. But you're going to have to learn a little bit what to do, how to order things in, actually move quickly in post-game, because it's very, very different. But you immediately start off by just planting a couple of seeds. We'll collect these later. And then immediately going over to the Peach's Castle and talking to this toad. Talk to this toad. It's very important. Throughout this run, we're going to be collecting moons from Peach. If you do not talk to that toad, you will not get those Peach moons. Make sure you talk to Peach. So now we start Tiles. Tiles is one of those moons that I could actually see being very, very slow for a beginner, so you might choose to get a different moon instead, and it's also possible to get later. So I honestly might advocate for a very beginner just skipping this moon and either A, doing it later, or B, just getting an entirely different. But throughout Tiles, we collected the Light from the Ceiling Moon and looked at the Cat Pin Tart. Make sure you look at the Cat Pin Tart. That's very important. But yeah. And here's where things really start to spice up. Here's where we enter our first painting of the run. We're going to snow for a second time. Towser's memorizing a pattern. I don't think it should be subbed out. When I remember the timing, I thought it was like pretty slow. Like it wasn't in Darker Side for a long period of time. That might have just been lack of knowledge, but I don't know. So, but I should mention, at this point in the run, it's a lot of memorization of the route. This seems daunting because there's 500 moons in the category. However, once you actually start doing it, you're like, oh, I just remember I go from the snow painting to warping to this checkpoint, then I just do all this movement. When you're just doing a bunch of movement, it's really easy to get that into your sort of muscle memory. Once you warp to the checkpoint at the well, you're going to be like, okay, I go to these notes, I collect them as best as I can, I talk to the toad, and now I'm heading over to the moon rock. It'll just sort of come naturally. So just have a sense of what you're doing, have watched it before, have done it in practice before, have fun on your first run, be like, oh, I'm supposed to do this here, I'm supposed to do this here, and then you'll figure things out slowly doing that. And make sure you grab that checkpoint, you'll be warping to it later. Oh, wait. You might be warping to it later. That's actually optional. I'll touch on that in just a second. So you probably shouldn't be missing that timer challenge, but remember that timer challenges are one of those Toadette achievement tied moons that if you miss a timer challenge, you're going to also be missing a Toadette moon. So if you, for whatever reason, fail that timer challenge, it's honestly probably a good idea to just go back and grab it. Or there is one backup timer challenge you can get in Moon 2 instead. So here's where there's a slight route deviation. Right there, Dylan looked up to spawn a moon at the top of the kingdom, and he's going to go over and grab it. And he's also setting up a vault to get it over there quicker. If you are just beginning this category, I would not actually recommend doing this. Right now, he's getting this moon so that later he can do a trick called Blowy Noey, and that's a little bit hard. So you can see he's coming over here, and he's going to do a triple jump over to this area. Instead of doing this, what you're going to do is just after you get that timer challenge moon with the fish, you'll just come over here and get up to the top the fastest way you can. So right here is where there's another slight deviation from the route if you're doing the clipless route as a beginner. After talking to Peach, you will simply immediately, before talking to Peach, you'll go get the shot moon, and then after talking to Peach, you'll just immediately enter the hole in the middle there without doing these rooms. This is because you've already done these rooms earlier, and there's not really a point in getting the single extra moon in them again. Another thing to note, if you've only done any percent, these rooms are a little bit different. And the cycle, for example, in that poison room is a little bit more difficult. If you do not, if you grab the third extra moon that spawns when you get the moon rock. So make sure you're familiar with all these rooms and how they change for post-game. So you see there, actually, that's a good thing to note. There's some faster movement you can do there, but it's a little bit weird, especially with the way that the walls work on the sort of hexagon, octagon faces of this pillar. So Dylan just long jumps, and he loses like maybe a second. Just long jump if you're ever uncertain of any rolls, any spin pounds, anything. Hippie's old All Moons runs are amazing examples of this. She just long jumped basically everywhere, like whenever she had like some weird movement to do, and they're just so good. I was a big long jump proponent at the beginning, and just honestly did not do them enough. So just remember that you don't need to spin, pound, and roll everywhere. And 04 with a good point. You can also just cap throw to stop any long jump too. So there's just an extra bonus. Like you're not committed to all the movement like you are with a roll. So yeah. So it's easy to be tempted to I'm saying this and I realize here it's easy to be tempted to long jump here, but it's even easier and better to just normal jump on that movement over to that chest. That's an exception to the rule, though. That is very much an exception. So another thing to note in the no clipless route. Oh, yo, he got it? That's actually kind of sick. He did a little tech where he got a frame throw when he entered that pipe and saved a little bit of time. That's kind of cool. So now Dylan grabs this moon and continues to... So here, okay, pausing. Oh, not pausing. Okay, going back. So as a beginner, I would not recommend warping here. So this is the checkpoint we got at the very beginning of the kingdom, and we're going to go up here in this area to the cascade painting. In order to do this, we need to do a hard trick that we'll see called Blowy Noey. Instead, I would recommend warping to the Odyssey, then collecting that moon shining on high that Dylan got earlier. Then there's a blowy Joey right around here. Just capture it and fly all the way over here and enter the cascade painting. It's a ton easier. It only loses like 10 seconds. You're likely to lose 10 seconds in just attempting to do Blowy Noey. And yeah, some discussion in chat about the differences between the advanced route and the beginner route. It's like Neo says, it's like 98% the same. You get almost all the same moons. I don't think 98% is quite directly accurate because you could actually calculate this because you can figure out the number of moons out of 500 that are different, but it's almost completely the same. There's just these minor differences that are important to note in this video. And yeah, 12-7 saying Blowy Noey only saves around time if you get it 4th try or better. That's also probably true. Yo. Okay. So, important thing to note, I got distracted. At the beginning of Cascade, we're going to do Dino Skip to get to the top of the kingdom. Make sure you break this rock open. Otherwise, you'll need to capture the dino again. And there, he does a safer version of Dino Skip than he does earlier in Cascade 1. And that's so he makes it up to the top and can do this part of the kingdom earlier. I still can't believe doing these 2 moons was actually faster earlier. That's so funny. I was just doing it so it would be safe. Funny how routes change like that. But actually, that's a good example. Sometimes if you find something that you're just like, okay, this is so much safer and I don't want to fail, it could just end up being straight up faster. So bring up those ideas. It's important. I'm hyped for the best sub-area in the game coming up. This is true, and I'm wondering, I might advocate not to do that in the beginner route. That's crazy. We'll cover that when we come up to it. So here's where we get that moon under the rock that we broke earlier. And here's, I don't know if I'll recommend this as a backup moon, but there was an old route where you capture the dino and go to the bottom and get the electrical pole. Ah, so Dylan does a backup here. Dylan! Okay, so Dylan is doing the wrong backup here. What you're supposed to do, instead of breaking this rock with Cappy, is just throw it into the water. If you throw a glowing rock into the water, it will pop open immediately, and then you don't need to deal with all that. So now Dylan goes over and captures this chomp, and that's because you need 35 throughout the run, and that one's right in your way, going to this sub-area. So this is a pretty difficult sub-area. This is one of those where if you decide to do it, make sure you have consistent movement. This is a little bit challenging. You can see Dylan is going at things completely blind. It's not easy to do. There might genuinely be other sub-areas in this game or other 2 moons that might just be better than this, because this is also pretty close to the cutoff time of not being worth doing. It's like around, I think, 16 seconds per moon, and the cutoff time's like 20 seconds per moon. But either way, if you decide not to do that sub-area, you'll just exit and go to this area and get this moon as normal. Cascade 2 is a really, really fun split. You can get really creative with the movement. One thing to note about this 2D section, Dylan does not do it because he's presumably has strategies that don't require it. Oftentimes, it's good to do a slight little camera manip where you shift the camera upward to make sure this Goomba that's normally over here moves a little bit, but that's a minor note. Alright, Busted Fossil is coming up. So, Busted Fossil is a pretty infamous moon in this game. You capture this Chain Chomp and then angle it at the perfect angle, shake to go back. Shaking pushes you back just slightly farther and makes the angle a little bit tighter, but you need to be very, very careful of the angle that you approach that moon at. And also, make sure that the other Chomp is not in the way when you slingshot the first Chomp over at the Fossil Moon. That one's weird. Nobody likes that moon. I actually like that moon, but basically nobody likes that moon, and it's annoying. And here's actually a fun thing to note. Notice that Dylan just skips that checkpoint. It's right in the way, but he skips it. That's because it's a little bit of time loss. You can get basically every checkpoint in this run without time loss. If you're ever worried, get that extra checkpoint, but chances are you're going to be okay. It's like something that you should be thinking about, but not stressing about. I'm not sure anything with Busted Fossil is confirmed in terms of shaking. That's true. It might just be a big placebo effect thing, but most people feel that it's easier after shaking, so I would recommend just doing it. It's a little bit of pseudoscience, but you know, what you gonna do? So here's another tourist moon. Be sure not to miss this or it will screw up the rest of the route. You will be missing 2 extra moons in Luncheon and Moon, and maybe 3 in Mushroom. I think we got that one too. But make sure you get that. And then same thing here. We looked at this hint art in Lake at the very beginning of the run, and now we're collecting that moon here. Also, someone in chat pointing out something good to note. Another reason to get checkpoints is they provide a place for you to respawn, because they're checkpoints. So, for example, if you skip the Mysterious Cloud sub-area that we talked about being awesome earlier, make sure you get that checkpoint that's close to that sub-area. That way, if you fail in the later section, you respawn at a good place. So coming up here in Bowser's 2, there is going to be a little bit of a... I hate when this happens. It happens all the time. But there's a pretty big jump that's going to happen here. It's very, very easy. However, messing up is also very easy if you just mess up your vector angle. So I'll point out, pausing right here, if you want to play it safe, just come over to this horn and then spin pound and roll down to this pylon over here. I honestly think it's easy enough to make sure that when you exit this, you start turning the camera. So just hold right on your analog stick, the right hand C stick, and then your camera will start turning. Then as Mario exit, you can just spin pound and then time your roll right around here. And then you'll just vector straight down. Alternatively, you can go over to that horn and then do the same thing. And then if you ever fail that, something really bad happens. So when you're getting close to the moon, make sure you're shaking. That way you stay in the wire. If you miss, it's no big deal. Just you're going to get uncaptured and have to recapture the wire again. And you can also spin, pound, and roll off of the side there. But yeah, there's plenty of ways to do that jump. Just make sure you're confident and consistent in the way that you choose to do it. That grabbed the moon. That was a funny hitbox. I guess I didn't comment on the peach moons in Cascade, like I mentioned, or Snow. Like I mentioned in Mushroom, if you talk to that toad in front of the Peach's castle, that is the only way you unlock those peach moons. So make sure you do that. Otherwise you lose out on like a free 10 or so moons. So here, angle your camera up to make sure you spawn in this moon off the wire. If you don't angle your camera up, that will really stink and you'll probably have to rewarp and do this moon again. Oh, good grief. I hate this strategy. Okay. Don't copy what Dylan does here. Watch one of my runs, please. I swear. I take this. This is one of those areas where I take this slower and just make sure I don't take damage to the spiny and play it very consistent. I don't like that strategy that Dylan went for and think that mine is pretty beginner friendly. So I'll plug myself there. Why not? Don't worry, Ludo, this VOD will be saved, so you'll be able to catch up with the rest of the run later if you miss the ending of it, and it will be uploaded to YouTube, and you can ask any questions in the comment section there as well. Okay, alright, I should probably comment on this a little bit. So Dylan goes for an advanced strat on this moon, where essentially, at the beginning, he goes here. Now, he's going to shake with the Pokio, immediately aim left with his control stick, and then shake. This allows him to grab all of these other notes. However, Pokio mechanics are weird and you can end up getting locked in a position. The only way to fix this, which he does barely in time, right now he's locked, he needs to let go completely of the analog stick and then angle it in the direction he wants to poke. This is really easy to mess up. What I would do instead is just do this and then just shake up. Then fall down on top of the rest of these notes, and then just be safe on the rest. So here comes a bird moon. Dylan fails there, but he keeps his camera down so that it's facing in a good direction the whole time. If you do that in time the cap throw properly, he won't fly away. Otherwise, you back it up as Dylan just did by doing first person right on top of the bird, and then it'll eventually just spawn right on top of you. They're not very smart. This goes for any bird moon in the entire game, including the butterfly moon and Lost One. I should have covered it then. So this jump is a little bit tricky. If you're ever unconfident in where you're going, if you're not sure where you are, don't think you have enough distance, just wall slide right above this. You'll take a one hit of damage, but that'll give you invincibility for a little bit, and you'll just land on this area. Then you can backflip, cat bounce, and get up to this top. It's way better than dying and having to try this over again. So honestly, the advanced movement in that area is not particularly difficult. So it's another example of people have a lot of different ways of doing the same section of the run. That's because it's a long category and most people don't have consistent strats. Watching other people do it in different ways and experimenting with different fast ways to do different movement will help a lot. I've belabored this point and I will continue to belabor this point throughout the rest of the run. Just make sure that you're comfortable with the movement that you choose to do. That bird moon can be tough to find. Good point. I'll point it out as soon as the sub area is done. So, oh, that's unfortunate. One thing to note when you're leaving the Jizo on top of this P-switch. Sometimes people can have a little bit of a problem where they do an extra jump after the P-switch animation goes off. So you'll see here, there's a P-switch animation. If you're still captured in the Jizo at this point, it's very easy to buffer an accidental extra jump with the Jizo, and that will move it off of the P-switch, and then you can't get the moon later. So just be careful. Make sure you've either uncaptured the Jizo before landing on the P-switch like Dylan did, or make sure that you don't get a buffered extra bounce if you haven't uncaptured the Jizo yet. That was interesting. Oh, one of the only times a spin jump is used in the run. Love to see it. Okay, let's go back a little bit and look at a difficult ground pound moon. So you take the slingshot here, and then right over here by these birds, like in this area, there's a ground pound moon. You can identify it with the rumble on your control stick. So when you get to the right area, your rumble will start to shake. So, however, oftentimes this is hard to recognize and you sort of just have to have a feel for it. So right here, just right here, I'm going to back up a little bit to before the birds landed. So like right about in this area is where the ground pound moon is. So just make sure you're comfortable and know where that is. Oh, whoops. Went a little bit too far. Okay. So now we're going to do this UFO mode. One thing to note about how it works is you will always get sent to the opposite side of the side you hit it on. So you want to try to land the last hit on the on the side closer to the checkpoint. That way you spawn closer to the moon. So, and then here's where I'll point out a very good backup moon. Getting that note moon to the right is a very good backup if you're ever down a moon at this point. There are better backups, however, that one's pretty quick. And as a beginner, I recommend rectifying your mistakes as quickly as possible. That way you're not scrounging for extra moons at the end of the run. So you'll see the seed has grown to the right. And you don't even get that checkpoint because it's slightly out of the way. But DSTA is used if you plant it in the wrong pot, then it will also have grown. You jump from on top of that little trampoline balcony awning thing and then grab the moon. So another extra capture, if you missed the fire piranha earlier or something, you can capture that rocket up top. I'm trying to make sure I'm not lying. I don't think I'm lying. But yeah, there's an extra one. There's also faster ones though, so I'm trying to be complete in this tutorial, but yeah. Oh, I like that. So this is a point in the run where there's a slight bird cycle, and it's fast. It's easy enough to where I would recommend beginners do it, but you need to be a little bit confident in your movement. So I would not do an immediate cap throw. For those who don't know, when you spawn from a checkpoint, what Dylan does here is he buffers a cap throw, and that sets him off the ground a little bit. He doesn't actually jump here, he just throws Cappy. I would not do this. Having said that, I would just do a jump, cap throw, dive, and then be very careful, long jump, cap throw, and then spawn this moon, grab the moon, go down here. I probably wouldn't do a roll boost there, but make sure you ground pound the right spot, and then capture the Gushin. Then, if you think you've gone slow, don't worry about going this direction, just go straight up. Just go straight up and look for the bird. Hopefully you're in time, and then you're good. If you miss that bird, I don't think there's a good backup, and you'll just have to get an extra move. So, straight up and just shake. Yep, and if you just shake, I actually don't like shaking that much because there's a little bit of RNG to where it's not actually RNG, but it's basically RNG because it depends on which way you're looking. But if you shake, the Gushin will shoot a bunch of little water jets in a bunch of directions, so there's a chance it'll hit the bird if you think you're slow. So as a real Hail Mary, just go straight up and shake, but I would just go up and look for the bird. Chances are you're in time because that's hard to go that slow in that section, but go up, look for it, and if you can't see it, shake immediately, and then look for it. But yeah. Now here's a route that I have never done. Crazy. This is what being an old head is like. I honestly might advocate for beginner route not doing the movement from Luncheon Timer Challenge 1 to the rock face, and instead doing what we used to do in Darker, but I don't know. That's a tough one. It's a hard decision. But for those watching this video, this doesn't really apply to you. This will be a decision we make and update in either the video description or in the Odyssey Discord. So here, wow, that was a lot of speed. Dylan allows the Koopa Shell to get all the notes in this area of the 2D maze, and that's generally the best practice. However, if this platform is in the way, sometimes it won't do that. So just be cognizant of what the platform's doing and what the shell is doing if you ever leave it to collect a bunch of the notes for you. I think, Sato, I think getting notes to the far left at the end was a mistake. Okay, so there, Dylan misses a trick called Fish and Dips. If you miss it, you'll just do what he does, but it only saves about, like, what is it, 7 seconds in this category? So, yeah. Seaside 2 is one of my least favorite parts of the run because it's got some of the most fish movement and pretty straightforward, not very interesting sections, but it's important to know all of the fastest lines to get between the little areas of the kingdom and all that stuff. So Just be comfortable knowing where is the purple dory going to be, where are, if I get fish and dips, is anything going to happen, all that stuff. Also, I should probably mention, right there is fish clip. That's a very easy trick to learn, and there's tutorials on it in the any percent Discord. Just make sure you're comfortable with it before starting runs. You do this now? I hate this. Oh, this is disgusting, but okay, sure. I'm a snob. Oh, this is just gross. Oh, I hate this. Okay. Okay. This is me being an old runner and not knowing this route. So one thing to note here is prior to getting this moon, Dylan angles his camera down. This is to prevent the eel from getting in his way here. That's a little bit tricky and makes you do this movement blind, so I don't know if I'd recommend a beginner do it, but just so you know, that is an option, but you need to be comfortable knowing where to go and what lines to follow in order to get to the nesting spot and slip behind it without the eel noticing. So now you set the gushion down on top of those barrels to get enough height to get this last moon here, and now we're exiting the Seaside Kingdom, just getting 2 more moons. Don't forget Peach, what are we doing? So now we're going into Wooded Kingdom. As mentioned earlier, we have not done peace in this kingdom yet. So the first order of business is going to be going from this painting platform to the top of the kingdom so that we can finish peace. So one thing to note, Dylan does not get this moon here, but to play it safe, there is a nut moon right under the screen right in this area. It can be fast to get this moon at the beginning here. There's a bunch of opportunities for you to get it. I think Dylan will choose the fastest one, but just know that you have to get this moon. Now's a good time for it. There are other better times for it that are a little bit faster, but just know that it's there. So quick note there, I'm not going to go back for this, but there was a little bit of tech done when the tank was dropping. When you drop with a tank, if you shoot a bullet at the same time, you can cancel some of the lag from when you land. So Dylan does that there and slightly messes up the timing, but he still saves time because there is no fall stun when he lands with the tank. So one thing to note about Wooded 2 is we actually just grabbed an incredibly important check. And we're basically going to be warping there, I think, every time. Maybe there's a couple of other different checkpoints. But we're almost always warping to Station 8. So it can be a little bit of a confusing kingdom to do everything in the right way. But this is just a situation where you need to be very comfortable with knowing what to do in each time you warp to the checkpoint and doing things in order. So we're going to fight this boss fight, then do some cleanup at the start of Wooded, then we'll do that. Also, one thing that Dylan is doing in this boss fight is he's getting some uproot power-ups. If you launch off of and land on that little planter thing right here in the right ways, you can decrease some of the lag that you experience when you're actually using the uproot. So, O4 Dude has a really good tutorial to explain how all these work. If he's okay with me putting that in the description of this video, I will put it in there, but yeah. If you get both of them, that could save you a nice little free 3 seconds throughout the boss fight, which is always nice. I don't know if it's 3, but maybe 2. Also, make sure on that last hit, do not immediately stretch up in the middle and hit Torque Drift. If you stretch up directly in the middle too early, you can clip through the bottom of the boss fight and just die. That is never happened to me, but I've seen it happen to plenty of other people one time. It's that thing that'll happen sometimes once, and then you'll never do it again. But just make sure that doesn't happen. So at this point in the run, we're actually going to go back to any percent, which is quite humorous. Alright, and now we get back to the weird routes from Darker, and we're going to grab the Moon Rock. So, this is another point, I mentioned this earlier, when we're doing main game, if you ever accidentally go to Lake first, then you will not be able to look at this hint art. So, either you look at that hint art in Wooded 1, or you will just skip that moon entirely and get a backup. I would recommend skipping the moon entirely and getting a backup, but here's our first warp to Station 8. So here's another chance you can have to get that nut moon, but again, Dylan chooses to do it in a slightly more optimal way, and yeah. I would not recommend getting it where Dylan does. I'd get either there or at the very beginning of the game. So one quick thing to note, if you do not look at those bullets when you shoot them, they will despawn. So make sure you're looking at the bullet that you shoot to break open the behind the rock wall moon, and then afterwards go shoot the crate moon. So here comes Captain Toad Jump. This jump's a little bit tricky. It just takes a little bit of practice, but Dylan does it a pretty consistent way. Essentially, you take one rocket flower. You can take more, but I'd only recommend taking one. Otherwise, you might land with speed, which is never fun to deal with. Then you go up at about this angle. Then you can jump off earlier, but just make sure when you jump, you're facing about at this angle. If you face directly this way, you're not going to get a vector, and you're not going to get as much distance. You want to jump off at about this angle, and then you're going to be A-okay. See how Dylan jumps? Then he has a bunch of distance, is going all the way over here, and then lands with plenty of space, even though he doesn't use his vector for as long as he could. Another thing to note about tank bullets, if you're too far away when you shoot them, they will despawn after a set amount of time. So make sure whenever you shoot the bullets, you are looking at them for long enough and are close enough to your target that they don't despawn. This movement's a little bit annoying. I'd recommend just playing it a little bit slow and doing a long jump there, and then getting under that tank and doing this. I wouldn't dive there. That feels unnecessary. So here's a Goombet Moon. If you accidentally kill a Goomba or something somehow, You cannot skip this moon. There are extra Goombas that we're going to roll past in just a minute. Grab one of those or two of those, however many you need to actually get tall enough. I suppose it's also important to note, I keep accidentally clicking off this, that when you talk to Goombette here, she expects you to be taller, but there's a slight slope in this area that we walk up. Then Goombette sees us and thinks we have one or two more Goombas and tall than we actually are. This movement stinks a little bit. This is another case where I would just play it a little bit slow and then go around the corner and then grab this nut as quickly as you can. Here you probably want to stay closer to Flooded Pipeway. Dylan was a little bit slow at that section, but that's probably just because he hasn't done it in a little bit. He's more of an all moons runner nowadays. So here's Flooded Pipes. It's the same as any percent, but just whatever strategies you decide to do, make sure you're consistent with them and then know how to hit your cycles or how to back up a miss cycle. This is... ugh. Okay, I'm glad that works for Dylan, but goodness. Okay, so here's a slightly different route that I don't think I like very much, but this sub area is a little bit quick, so you can swap. I don't know. I don't really like the inclusion of this in the route, and there's other backup moons that I will come to later on that you can get instead. But point is, this sub area is decently fast, especially for the beginner route. It's not in the advanced route; it's a little bit too slow. But you can get these moons and then move on to the bird cycle. So the bird cycle is a pretty important part of Wooded 2, and it will either start from here or you will warp. Let me go back to a warp menu 1 second. So it will either start when you exit that sub area or when you warp to this top flag or this flag here. For beginner routes, I would recommend warping to this top here. So, you warp up here, then go down here, and collect a moon floating over the void, and that will start your route. So, instead, we will start over here, exiting the sub-area, and the bird cycle will start there. So, that is all I'll say. It won't make much sense, I apologize, but hopefully it makes enough sense, and now we can actually watch the bird cycle play out. So, we go over here, we roll a couple of times and do a triple jump. This will allow us to reach this moon over here. Then you fall down, capture this uproot, and now we start going through the red maze after collecting this nut. So you'll notice that Dylan's uproot is going pretty fast. This is because he got those power-ups that I mentioned earlier in the Torque Drift fight. Again, 04 Dude has a good tutorial on this. Hopefully he allows me to put it in the description of this video. But even if you don't get those power-ups, it is still very possible to do this area fast. Again, it's just about being confident in what you do. See, even right here, Dylan messes up a little bit. Another thing to note is don't go under here and then start pushing this platform up. It needs to be pushed up a little bit, but don't push it up all the way. Just push it up a little bit, it'll make the rest of the movement slightly easier. Then you can shake with the uproot to go a little bit higher and then be okay. So keep in mind that doing this section is a little bit important to be fast because you're on a bird cycle. However, Dylan knows he's fast enough to get an extra moon in the time that the bird is still flying. So he gets this timer challenge, and then we'll grab the bird moon. You do not need to grab this timer challenge first. The bird is coming. It is over here. And he grabs this moon, and now we'll do a spin, pound, and jump over here. If you are uncertain of where the bird will be, do not grab it over the void. Simply, as soon as you're done with this section right here, the moon will spawn, and then you can grab this moon right here, and then wait for the bird over by the railing to my right, and then just get it. So Dylan is going very fast here. That's because we told him to play like normal. That's okay. But important to note that it is okay to wait here, and that missing the bird is way worse than waiting just a little bit of time and getting the moon a little bit slower. But at the same time, look how much Dylan messed up in this section. He's still able to get this bird this quickly. He both gets an extra moon and messes up a little bit in the red maze and after the red maze and doing the timer challenge. So it's not that bad. Just be confident in your movement and you'll be okay. So one thing you might have noticed here is Dylan hit this bullet and was not able to capture it. That's a little bit of an annoying quirk about this sutter. I don't think this happens anywhere else. If you throw the bullet too early, it's still coming out of the cannon. So you need to delay your throw just a little bit to make sure when you do throw it, it'll capture. So be careful about that. It happens everywhere there are giant bullet bills, but where else are there giant bullet bills? Moon Cave happens all the time. That's an all moons thing, though. Okay, so here is where Dylan gets the nut moon I mentioned at the very beginning of this run, and you'll see why it's a little bit challenging. He starts the timer challenge and then immediately goes up here and grabs this nut moon. This is not easy. I don't think this is a good idea for beginners to do. However, it's an option. So I would just get it at the very beginning of the kingdom or at the first warp to Station 8. Either one works equally well. So now Dylan's setting up some fast movement to do this timer challenge. Oh, sweet. Okay, he actually does a pretty chill strat. I would recommend doing this if you're a beginner trying to figure out how to do these moves fast. There you go. Nice and easy. So another instance of Dylan skipping a fast checkpoint. It is very, very possible to get all the checkpoints you need while skipping some checkpoints. So if you're ever concerned, get some extras, but you'll probably be okay. So here, you're going to get a hat and seek moon. So Dylan angles his camera to look at the hat and seek guy before talking to him. This allows you to first person and grab the moon instantly rather than having to wait a little bit. And now he triggers the dog. Very important to trigger the dog, otherwise they'll start wandering around like an idiot and not doing what you want them to. Which is honestly pretty reflective of real life dogs. And then now he talks to this music toad and gets track 58. Track 58 is the one that you want. It is moving up 1 on the D-pad, then ZLing twice. And if you forget the bird in Sand 1, you can get it right there. It's technically faster to do that, but also a lot riskier and doesn't save that much time. And now here's where you get the seed that we planted earlier in Sand 1. And then after this, I suppose it's important to mention that the dog will only move while you have him on screen. That's why Dylan was doing weird movement with the camera not pointing in the direction he was moving. He wanted to keep the dog on screen. That way the moon will get spawned. This is not extremely important for beginner level runs, because you'll likely be going a little bit slower, and when you're actually rolling over to the dog, he'll be moving enough and you won't lose that much time. But just know the dog will only move when you have him on screen. So here we're going to do another Goombet Moon. Normally you need to capture all 4 of these Goombas, however there's a little bit of a trick that'll allow us to do only a couple of them. So first of all, notice that Dylan does a little camera manip throughout this to make sure that the platform is at the right part, and then he jumps up directly to Goombet off of that little mound there. If you get the right spot on the mound and then do a shake jump, you'll be able to make it up to Goombet. Now he comes over to this bullet blaster, captures a bullet, and gets bullet bill breakthrough. What are we doing? Are we all moons brain rotting? What's happening here? Very strange. Okay. But anyway, now we have to get a bullet and this moon over here. So we grab this moon over here. Now we wait for this bullet to get as close as possible, and then we do some advanced bullet tech to get over to the eastern pillar. So essentially, after you shake once with the bullet bill, you want to stop holding the acceleration button for the bullet bill, and it'll gain a little bit more speed, and then you can keep shaking and go a little bit faster. But if you're struggling with the distance you get with that bullet bill, if you're in a run, just skip that moon. It's not worth going back and getting again and get it back up. But you probably just want to be familiar with how to do it properly. And in that case, you just want to capture the bullet bill a little bit closer to the eastern pillar block moon anyway. "12-7 in chat bringing up, if you're not good at reverse Jaxi, you want the Jaxi checkpoint right there. The problem with that comment is there's not really another spot you're going to get the Jaxi checkpoint there. I just recommend being okay with reverse Jaxi. The trick is not particularly difficult if you play it slow. If you're very concerned, you can go to one of the Jaxi statues on the left first and play it a little bit safe in that way, but I think it's probably worth just going for reverse Jaxi. The one in the ruins by Goombet? Oh, okay, fair enough. That's also an option, and then if you fail, you would, if you fail and don't get that checkpoint, you would warp up to the tower and just take glide on over to the ruins checkpoint. I don't think I would plan on ever failing that, to be honest. I think that I would prefer going over to... I would prefer to warp to glide on, or take the pylon to glide on, honestly. Yeah, wait. Okay, sorry. I need to pause here and collect my thoughts. So, I think I agree with myself here. So, if you... Here's the rather challenging part of the run we're talking about. Sorry to make this confusing. So this jump is a little bit risky. Not too difficult, but if you fail it, you respawn in a really bad spot. So say you died here, then you would respawn... all the way back here. If this happens, I think that you just capture the pylon, and then instead of uncapturing and going over there, you just keep going up, then capture Glidon, then fly over to ruins. Am I... Chat, I'll let you decide. I think this is the best backup. I think this is better than just trying reverse Jaxi again. I would just take the Bulbo and do normal Jaxi skip. I genuinely feel like reverse Jaxi is easier than normal Jaxi skip, to be honest. Either way, there's an option. You can also get the checkpoint, like 12-7 said, by Goombet, and then try normal Jaxi skip, and then just go from there. Yeah, I don't know. I think that what I just described with going back up and then capturing Glidon is the safest and best beginner backup, rather than grabbing this checkpoint to the left. Hopefully it's on screen shortly. Oh wait, actually there's a better spot for it. Just grab that checkpoint to the left right here if you want to play it extra safe, but honestly, I feel as though just going back up to the top and grabbing Glidon's the best backup. Anyway, moving on. We were about here. I'll go back a little bit. Okay. Sorry about that. I did not think about reverse jacks when preparing for this video. Just don't fail the jump. I am with that, and it's not a very hard jump. Yes, Dylan, saving that one note for later. That allows for a better camera pan when you collect this moon, is a little bit faster. And if you land on these bullet bills like Dylan's about to do, surely, you get a little bit of a bounce, and he messed it up a little bit and will now lose actually a lot of time because he didn't back it up properly. But either way, yeah. That's a minor thing. Don't worry about that. I'm just a nerd. Oh, I probably should have mentioned in that 2D section, if you're not confident, just go over to the right and then do the thing as intended. Like, you don't need to bounce off the bullets. That's just a swag strat that saves like 3 seconds. If you're ever unsure, just go around to the right. Sorry, I should have said that. One thing to note about Jaxie that just crossed my mind is, why do you do this, Dylan? Okay. Okay, sorry. What on earth? That was some movement for sure. He's confident in it. He did it very confidently and well. I don't think it was the best movement or even the fastest, but it looked cool. One thing to note about Jaxie is that whenever you're riding on him and you collect a moon, after you grab the moon, you're going to be going at max speed, no matter if you were braking beforehand. So, if you're ever not sure about what direction you're going with Jaxie, just be sure to immediately brake after doing that. Also, that was a very sketchy way to do the timer challenge. It was fast and good, but it looked like it was about to not work, so be very careful, and it's okay just to do that one casually. It doesn't lose much time. Don't bonk. That was ridiculous. Why would you do that? Alright, let's see. Does he hit the sheep? He does not hit the sheep for good luck. It is a little bit of time loss, so you don't want to hit the sheep, but it's a good reference for your line. If you're going right around the sheep, it's a good way to know that you're going in the right direction to the sub area. So you'll notice here, Dylan captures the Moai. This is again because we need 35 captures, and that saves a little bit of movement to capture the Moai there. So if you're ever unsure of how high you are with light on here, just land on one of those bricks areas, and you'll notice that at the beginning, Dylan lands right there to give himself a little bit of extra height to make sure he grabs the moon. Just be sure you're in the right area to get that. If you miss it, it's okay just to skip that moon. Now he vectors down a little bit and is going to go for one other moon. On top. And now here's a timer challenge moon where it's easy to die. Unfortunately, it is a timer challenge moon, so if you fail, you should come back and get it. However, if you're feeling obstinate and don't want to, the backup for that is to get the one in Moon Kingdom instead. I don't think this is a good idea, but it is an option. And here's a Death Warp. Now we're at the beginning of at the top of the kingdom. And Dylan is going to set up a pretty tricky dram strat. I don't know if he gets it, but earlier in the run, I mentioned that it can be okay to skip dram. This is because when you're doing this section of the run, you will grab this moon in the sand right here, and then instead of setting up the second dram to the bullet like Dylan just did, you would drop down and get the alcove moon here later, and then come up to the top and capture a bullet. That's what I recommend doing for a beginner, and this is a little bit tricky. And 12-7 mentioning in chat, it's also possible to, if you miss a Toadette type achievement, which again are timers, 8 bits, Goombet moons, and 2D moons. If you miss one of those, you can either get an extra 2D moon, timer challenge, Goombet, or 8-bit moon, or you could just get 2 different backup moons. And this is where we really start to describe these backup moons that I've been talking about. So the first one I actually missed is you can get Sand Shop at the beginning of Sand 2. This is a little bit of a slower one, but it's good to rectify moons that you miss as quickly as possible. That way you can get them. There's also a couple in Metro. This one at the very beginning, you can capture that taxi and then get the taxi moon over by the music toad. That's another backup moon. And there will be more. I'll try to point them out as we go throughout the run. There will be 2 more later on in Metro. Slots is also technically exact, but you probably aren't going to be missing slots very often. So this bunny is a pain in the butt. I honestly, if I miss this bunny, I might skip it. Like, this is awful. So be very confident in what you're doing in order to hit this, or just take some time and figure out what happens if you miss the bunny. That way you don't make too many mistakes when you actually are done with it. Binoculars looking at Flying Taxi. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So here, the backup moon that I was talking about, just to be exceptionally clear, you capture these binoculars and look at a flying taxi up into the left and around this area of the screen. You look up into the left, find the flying taxi, the moon will spawn over here. It's a slow backup moon, but it exists. Okay. Anyway, back to the bunny. Oh, it might be a flying sphinx there too. Also, another note, before grabbing this moon, you have to make sure to look at it first, otherwise Mario will go right past it. So, I believe when he's going down on this wire, yes, Dylan has this moon loaded on screen right now. So, just make sure whenever you're going over to grab this moon, you've looked at it previously. That way, whenever you shake and collect these coins, you will also collect this moon. So movement in this sub area is a little bit tricky. After you pull the lever, you're on a timer to collect this moon. So it's about 3 rolls, and then you're in a good position to dock to this guy with a hat and seat cappy on the back of his head. So make sure you know what the guy looks like in his dark suit, that you can recognize him, and then still make it over here in time to grab this timer challenge moon. Also note that that is a timer challenge moon, so it is 1, not fast to skip, and 2, you cannot skip it because it is tied to Toadette achievements. So we've warped, now we're also on a bird cycle, so we warp to the dog and we hit it, and then now we grab the wreckage moon. Again, if you're for some reason really unconfident in your dog movement, then you can get the wreckage in Metro 1, but that is unnecessary. So Dylan throws Cappy over there to lead the dog to the right spot to dig, then comes around here to grab the bird. This is a little bit technical and not easy to do. If you mess up, though, the bird will do another lap very quickly, and you can just throw Cappy at it and collect it in about the same exact spot. If you for some reason fall and miss this moon, you can warp up to later on in throughout the route, you can warp up to the top of the kingdom and then just do what you do in any percent to collect this moon again. So here we're going to do a trick where we grab this moon in the sky by doing the spin pound. Then Dylan is going to cap bounce to the right to vector down, and then throw Cappy to grab this bird. This is possible to do and is, I think, beginner friendly enough to do properly. However, it's not easy, and I'll touch on a backup strategy you can do later on. This is bullet building. It's the same as any percent. You can play it safer by not doing that up throw strategy on the bullet bill, but in general, that's not the most difficult thing, so I would recommend just doing it. So here we're collecting one of the seed moons we collected earlier. If you're ever low on captures, getting this M right here is a very good backup. So here we're talking to the guy, and now we're going to head over to, goodness gracious, to the Seaside Hint Art. If you miss the bird, taking notes in the private room is right over here. And first of all, that is a good backup moon to get. Second of all, when you exit that room, if you exit the room, then immediately bounce on this taxi right here. The bird will be right in this area above the taxi. If you want to see an example of this, you can watch any All Moons run. You can find a bunch of those on my YouTube channel, but it'll show an example of exiting this room, then immediately getting the bird. Entering the room, exiting, getting the bird is definitely faster than doing all of the private room notes, but if you feel more comfortable just getting the backup moon for private room, that is okay too. So another point I'll pause. First of all, you don't need to do scoot clip. Instead, you can capture the guy and do the scooter normally. Second of all, we have 2 more extra moons right to the right. I'll back up just a little bit. So essentially, we have the shop right over here. First of all, Metro Shop is a very fast moon in general, so it might actually be in the route. I probably should... Let me see. Let me just make sure we're not getting it already. Okay, we don't get it yet, or he might just get another one. But either way, if you're not getting Metro Shop in your route, it's a very good backup moon. It's also possible that Dylan made a mistake and is getting a backup moon later, because it's possible to swap out a moon for another moon in this. But also, if you do get Metro Shop and you're very low on moons, it is an option to buy the pirate outfit, and then in Lake, talk to the Lake Lemodian in the very middle, and she'll give you a moon for wearing the pirate outfit. I wouldn't recommend doing that as a backup moon, but it is an option if you're down. I would get notes in the private room first. Also, this that checkpoint is good to get because it's no time loss since you're waiting for Cappy to come back to you at this point in the run anyway. So this strategy is a little bit weird. You'll have to experiment with things that you can do to get this timer challenge the best for you. I like doing it the way that Dylan just did and think that's pretty beginner friendly, to be honest, if you're comfortable with doing a spin jump and waiting to home Cappy in. But it's not super easy, so figure out what's most comfortable for you and do that. Also, I should touch on this for slots. You don't need to do that spin throw strategy that Dylan does. You can also, let me go back. You can also throw Cappy right around here and hold him. Talk to the guy, walk with Mario over here. Then when you release Cappy, it will just go through all of these slots and then collect them all immediately. It's a little bit tricky to do the spin throw. I think it's possible to learn, but it's probably better just to throw Cappy over here, talk, go over here, wait, and then yoink. So Metro 2 is an important split because it has, I think we touched on 4 potential backup moons. So keep that in mind if you're ever low on your moon count throughout your runs. I actually don't know what the lake route looks like nowadays, because lake is one of those kingdoms that's gone through a lot of changes. That's unfortunate. So I believe that was an accident. Yes, you're not actually getting this timer challenge moon. Dylan just accidentally hit it. Dylan. So an alternative for doing this, I think that just going over here and jumping off of the timer challenge platform is not too bad. The reason that we do it is we do need to grab this checkpoint, which is why going that direction is better. In order to make it easier, at the beginning of the kingdom, instead of rolling this direction like Dylan does, you can roll over around this area to make in long jump and make it to this platform over here, then go from this platform over to the checkpoint. Whatever works best for you, just figure out some way to get from this planing over here to this checkpoint as fast as you can. I'm going to fast forward because this was a mess. Okay. Then after getting the checkpoint, you capture the Lakitu. So getting this Notes Moon with spin throws is a huge cheat code. Would recommend keeping that in mind. If you're ever struggling with that single jump, you can also bounce off of the red flower and make it over there with a cat bounce with a little bit more leeway. But that said, a single jump or a vault is generally just fine. So one thing that a lot of people actually don't know and might find useful is if you miss this bird moon, getting it that way is a little bit tricky. If you miss it, don't chase after it. Either just skip it. However, there's also a very easy backup. Come over here, grab these Goombas, then you'll go over here, grab the Goombat Moon. Once again, the Goombat Moons are tight. And then, oh, he doesn't turn his camera enough, but if you go over in this direction after grabbing the Goombat Moon, the bird will be right over there. If you miss it, tough luck. You missed the bird. It's okay. However, at that point, I think it's worth skipping because backing up that bird and actually getting it later on after missing it the first time is a real big pain in the butt. So get the Goombat Moon, come over here. Hopefully the bird's over there. If it's not, move on with your life. It's okay. Why are we... Okay. You know, it's fine. This summary is a little challenging. If you copy the movement that Dylan does, it's not particularly difficult. But I also think there's beginner-friendly backups that you can do instead of this. I'm a little bit confused why this is in the route. Why are we going over there too? So another thing to make this easier is instead of going to this platform, you can just go to this platform and then play it a little bit slower with these waves, but it's okay. Choosing routes is always a little bit weird when it comes to these things because you can swap out so many different moons with each other. All that you got to do is figure out something that works for you, and there's a tool that lets you pick and choose which moons you want to do and make sure you still have 500 total by the end of your run. And as long as you know your backups and have an idea of the route that you want to do, you'll be a-okay no matter what you're doing. And now we warp to this checkpoint that we got earlier. If you miss it for whatever reason, you should not be missing it. Just warp up to the painting platform over there and then just do the timer challenge as usual. Also, I referenced that tool a few times. At the end of this run, I'm going to go over all of the resources that we have, how to use them, and what they each do, and where to find them, just so you know. Oops. So here's the point in the run where if you did get the pirate outfit, you would go over here up above and then talk to the Lake Lemodian. If you're comfortable with Outfit Clip, you can also get that as a backup moon, but that is probably not something that is going to be done by a beginner. So after capturing this Cheep Cheep, there's a couple of backup moons that you can get. We just rolled over them. So you grab this moon, you capture a Cheep Cheep, and then you go down in this little hole. There are 2 moons here, one of which is just a normal moon. It's deep down in the back of the area, and the other one is Captain Toad. So if you either miss a Captain Toad throughout the run, because you either forget or something, then there's a backup Captain Toad down there for you. And then there's another one. This is also a pretty consistently timed set of moons that is good to replace for a sub-area if you're ever struggling with it. So say you're struggling with Mysterious Clouds and Cascade, you can swap Mysterious Clouds out for these 2 moons. Or say you're struggling with Invisible Road and Wooded, you can swap that one out for these 2 down here and then just warp to a different checkpoint and start the bird cycle from there. Another thing I should have mentioned is another good backup Captain Toad moon is the one in Metro. You can get that one in a bunch of different places, but the fastest place to get it in Metro is after going from the park over to the other wire at the top that gets you to the top of the kingdom. But I shouldn't be talking about Metro and Lake. Oops. So there's another backup 2D moon. If you're ever low on 2D moons, you can enter that 2D pipe and collect the Lake 2D moon as an extra. And as a note, it's faster to run back through the 2D pipe than to do movement through the other pipe to the crate moon. Here's another difficult sub area. I don't think I would sub this one out personally, because it's beginner friendly enough and has enough easy strats, and if you're comfortable with rainbow spin movement, you should be a-okay. But it's a little bit challenging. Make sure you practice this before doing it in runs. So, important things to note in Lake 2 is if you have bought the pirate outfit, collect that here. The Deep Down and Captain Toad Duo, or called Deep Down Duo, are 2 very fast moons you can replace for a sub area. And you can also get an extra 2D moon in this kingdom if, for whatever reason, your route's a little bit off and you miss the 2D moon. So at the very beginning there, you notice they'll just immediately spin pounds and rolls back there. I would recommend doing that. You can even be a little bit slow and line it up. That's a very easy, consistent way to get the bunny. If you miss the bunny, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. There is an instance of a little bit of technical movement. You can also slow that down by doing jump dives and more long jumps with cap throws after them rather than all that stuff. But here you also notice that Dylan does some doesn't camera minute this bubble. If you want to, you can angle your camera down here. That way the lava bubble on this island spawns a little bit later. That way you have less pressure to make the cycle, but that will lose you pretty negligible time in speedrun like Darker Side. .12.7 in chat saying that there is a consistent backup for Bunny. I do not know this, so I can't describe it, but if you ever are curious about this because you're messing it up, ask in the Mario Odyssey Discord Darker Side channel. How'd that second throw work? I've never seen that before. That's crazy. I don't know if you remembered to angle camera up at the beginning of Forks, which might have caused that issue. So after this, we have some any percent movement, so I don't really need to cover the backup for this, but if you're... Oh, he doesn't do this. Sweet, that's great. Okay, nice. So, yeah, okay. Just do that. Or you can do what you do in any percent, be a little bit different. But okay, so turnip 2. Very easy moon to mess up. And this is one of the big reasons you want to know your backups. Say, okay, cool. I'm doing turnip 2. I'm doing it. I'm triple jumping here. Oh, I lost all my speed and missed my throw. I'm not going back over to the turnip, to the crag and grabbing the turnip again. I need to be like, okay, what moons am I getting instead? So, also, Dylan forgets something here. He plants both of these turnips, and this will spawn 2 moons over here. He forgets to talk to Peach. So this is very important because this is a very fast moon, and sometimes it just happens. You just brain fart. You're like, oh, she's right there. I must have already talked to her or something. He forgets that, and he realizes, and I'll explain when he realizes and what he does to back it up later. So first of all, I don't know if Luncheon Shop is in the route or not, but it's a fast moon, and generally you either get Luncheon Shop or you get Metro Shop. So the other one will be become a backup moon. But notice he hasn't noticed yet. If he knew that he forgot Peach, he would have gone over there just now or after grabbing this moon and then just grabbed her. So he has not realized that he missed this moon yet. But he continues with the route as normal. Another potential backup, if you get Luncheon Shop, you can buy the mechanic outfit and then go up here and grab the mechanic moon up into the right before slots. So after slots, there is another backup set of moons. You can exit slots and go over to Volcano Cave, cruise up into the left on the map there. I don't think this is a good idea, and nobody should really do this at a beginner level, but it does exist if you're ever really struggling for moons. So now we have Moon Dump. Dylan's probably thinking, okay, I need X number of moons, and I'll be able to see how many moons I have as soon as I get dumped. Get them dumped. $397 moons. He's like, wait, this doesn't make sense. I want 398 moons. Then he racks his brain. Which one did I miss? Potentially even ask somebody in chat if he's that lucky to have somebody there. Which moon did I miss, guys? I don't know. Then he's like, dude, you're freaking stupid. You missed Luncheon Peach. I'm like, oh, I am dumb. How'd I do that? Then you're like, okay, is there a way when I visit Luncheon again, can I get Peach again? Or is there another moon I can get that's fast and then I can use as a backup? So generally, at this point in the run is when you're going to notice that, oh, my moon count is off. I need to get an extra moon. So just keep that in mind and then be like, okay, what extra moons I can get. So an option he could do is be like, okay, I'm down a moon. I can immediately start this kingdom, go over to my right, and capture the binoculars. The binoculars, if you look up and to the right, like in this area, there will be a taxi flying in the sky, and that'll spawn a moon on top of this tree. So there would have been a quick way to rectify his outfit, his moon deficit, but he knows another way that will be faster later on. Chop is generally better in Lost 2 because you are more secure on your coin count. But technically, I think you could do it in Lost 1. So here, Dylan does a camera manip to make sure the Trapedal hits that correct block. If you mess up the camera nip or want to play it safe, drag the trapedal over to the right just a little bit before throwing Cappy to it, and then it'll hit both those blocks just fine. So here's a pretty tricky jump. Well, not pretty tricky, but actually entering this this gap right here in the wall is a little bit tough. If you want to play it safe, instead of doing a dive over here, just ground pound in this area right here, go up top, and there's a checkpoint right up there for you. Then that way if you die, you're good, and then you can also enter the gap area from up high, and then it's less risky if you do it. Having this checkpoint is also probably recommended in general, because if you die at all in this area of Lost 2, it's going to be pretty punishing, so having a more central area to respawn and restart the route and start getting the moves that you're normally supposed to be getting is a very good thing to have. These are also some good extra coins that you can get for practically no time loss. That jump's a little bit tricky and is another reason that it's good to get that checkpoint that I just mentioned earlier. And this Shards Moon is also tricky and honestly is a candidate for a moon swap. So if you ever want to switch out a moon for the Shards Moon, feel free to do so. But just be very confident with your movement on top of these small little pegs. Goodness, okay. So I honestly think that doing this Notes Moon the way that Dylan is doing it, I would probably grab, if I were a beginner, I would probably grab that the moon in the center before starting the notes. But as I was saying, it's probably easier to do that with a spin throw than with the Wiggler, but if for whatever reason you think it's easier to do that with the Wiggler, then that is another option for you. That is how you're supposed to do it. Oh, he misses this. So here's a pretty difficult section of Lost 2 in general. So Dylan will showcase the fastest way to do this section. Then I'll explain some variations you can do to make it a bit easier. So he starts off by long jumping over here, and then throwing Cappy to this trapedal, doing a double jump, and then spin pounding on top of this. First things first, when you throw this here, I would just hold Cappy out for a second. I wouldn't immediately home in like Dylan does. I would wait just a second, then home in. Then, I wouldn't long jump here. I would do a jump dive to land on the middle right here. Once I land here, I stop completely and set up a triple jump. You stop completely, then do a triple jump instead of a double jump. That way you're absolutely certain you land on top of this ground pound spot. Then, once you're here, you do a ground pound jump and just ground pound and wait. Then, if you stall long enough in the air, you don't have this issue that Dylan had happen where you're too fast and the trapedal goes in the wrong spot. So, that's the breakdown. That's what you should do if you're going for it, doing it this way. All that said, I would not recommend doing it this way. I would start from over here, then after you grab this moon, immediately go over to the left. That way, you can go over to the left, hit this ground pound moon, try hitting the bunny once. If you miss the bunny, it's okay. Then just continue going over to the klepto platform. Then ground pound the klepto platform and continue doing the movement as usual. So at this point, I'm just going to let what Dylan does play out because I think it will replicate what I would suggest doing more closely. So now he's grabbing this moon, and now he's going to grab the bunny. Oh, well, he misses the bunny, so now he goes over here, and he knows, okay, this is done, so I can just sit here and crouch. This is the best way to back up the moon and makes it a lot easier. Just get over there as fast as you can, crouch under it, and then you'll grab that moon. Then once you're done, he spin pounds this platform, hits the bunny, and then collects the moon. Hopefully that all made enough sense. It's a little bit of a tricky section, but that's the best way to navigate it. The bunny is hard. The bunny just takes practice. It's honestly not too bad. So right here, while you're doing this timer challenge, it's not too hard to collect that moon in the middle of it. I would just recommend being careful, and if you're ever feeling unsure, simply don't do it. Like, just get it later on. Get the timer challenge moon first, then get that moon. It's a lot slower, but it's way better than missing the timer challenge moon, because then you're down a timer challenge moon and you need to get either 2 backups or the timer challenge in Moon Kingdom. Why are we in Mushroom? Did he go to the wrong place? Okay, he did. Okay, so after Lost 2 is Tap 2, not Mushroom. I was a little bit confused. So don't go to the wrong kingdom. Or own a Switch 2. That will probably make up for all the load time you saved. So up here, up next is a tricky trick jump. So I'll let it play out because... Oh, is he not going to do it? Oh, no, he's going to do it a different way. Anyway, it's a trick jump, and it's possible to learn as a beginner because you just sort of rainbow spin and do easy tech like that, but Dylan made a slight mistake here. So on top of this platform, he dives, and in order to dive, you need to press Z and Y or X. That'll let you do a dive, and then you'll go forward. Now, if we go forward frame by frame, Dylan rolls on top of the sign. This is technically okay, because if you press, let's see, if you press A in either the buffer frames or the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4 or 5 frames that he's on top of the danger sign, you can still get a long jump. So that's maybe like a 10 frame window. That's technically enough. However, you can make this a lot easier is if after you dive by pressing Z and Y, you let go of Z. Then Mario will not enter this tricky roll animation and will instead walk on top of the danger side, and that will give you a lot more leeway in the amount of time you have to do a long jump. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing this jump, but I will also explain the alternative if you fail this jump, or if you would just rather not risk doing this jump. I think that time he did not hold Z, and that's why it didn't fail. So that's what the jump looks like when you do it correctly. The alternative is over here to the left, there's a little Paragoomba nesting spot over there. If you go over to that area instead of rolling this way, you capture a Paragoomba and fly it over here. It's a lot slower, but it's a good backup and good to know about. I don't think he held Z. I think he repressed Z too soon. That's fair. Okay, fair enough. So throughout Cap 2, there's a little bit of a bird cycle. You can see him flying around over there. We're not going to get him for a while, but this is one of those things where you have to be comfortable with what you're doing in order to make it on time. It's not super lenient, it's not super difficult, but you do need to know what you're doing in order to get it properly. So throughout this, he'll be going a little bit quick in order to make this work. But if you miss, it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, well, that sucks. I'll have to get a backup moon later on. So this timer challenge is very important. Doing it this way is a little bit riskier, and honestly, as a beginner, I might recommend just playing it really safe and not doing that backwards dive. If you die on this timer challenge, it's a very costly death, as you will respawn back on the Moonrock platform. So also note that technically, the PowerPoint will tell you this, but this is not when you're supposed to get Spin the Hat, get a prize. You get it a little bit later on in the route, generally. Yeah, so after getting the timer challenge moon, you'll come over to shop, then get Spin a Hat, get the prize, generally. He messes up a little bit. The order doesn't matter too much, but important thing to note. Oh, did I just lie about the bird cycle? I'm sorry, that's later on in Cap. Goodness me. See, I'm not familiar with the route anymore. It's okay. Throughout that part of Cap, I lied. You're actually not on a bird cycle, but you will be later on in the kingdom, and I'll explain how that comes up. Otherwise, sorry. Yeah, Neo in chat correcting me. It is after the death warping step. So some fun tech that was just recently made known. If you throw Cappy before your death animation, it'll be just randomly a second faster. I think it's because he doesn't do that screaming thing. So before you grab that moon, throw Cappy and then hold him out while you die. And then you're just vibing and you save a second. Nice and fun. But now this is where we're on the bird cycle. So you respawn at that checkpoint and then grab the moon under the Odyssey. Now we're on the bird cycle. Forgive me, I misspoke earlier. This is where we're on the bird cycle. Wow, you got the Peach first person here. Nice. So normally you would get spin the hat, get a prize here. But honestly, getting it earlier might make the bird cycle a little bit more lenient. So it's really up to your preference. But normally you get spin the hat, get a prize there, then continue with the route after this. And here, while you're flying with the Paragoomba, normally the bird would be somewhere around here. And then you'd be like, okay, do I have time to get this Notes Moon, then get the Bird Moon? And in this case, Dylan skipped a moon, so he's like, okay, I have plenty of time, so I'll get this Notes Moon first, then get the Bird Moon. Most of the time, if you do the rest of the movement fast, you'll have enough time to get the Notes Moon first. And that's correct. The old ComSob for Cap 2 was around, slower than 6 minutes flat, and I didn't see much more potential for it to be improved. This is where we get the bird, by the way, and the new version of Cap 2 is when I was just starting, was already at 440, and it was very unoptimized. So yeah. So one thing to note: this is the end of Cap 2. To make this bunny easier, you can either angle your camera down if you're comfortable with where it'll be, or you can go rightwards like Dylan did to make sure that you grab it at the right spot. So note that Dylan currently is still a moon down because he has not rectified his mistake from missing Peach and Luncheon 2. So, Moon 2 has two very, very slow backups, but important to know backups. There is a 2D moon across the moon face to the right, now directly behind Mario. There's a moon pipe. It's very easy to do on the fly. And there is also a timer challenge that I'll point out when we're facing directly towards it. If you ever throughout the run miss a timer challenge or a 2D moon and can't back it up, these are your best last resort backups. And honestly, they're decent last resort backups to know, because while they're slow, they're not ridiculously slow, and often 30 seconds is not going to make or break a PB, and if that's the amount of time you're losing, it's okay. So, the timer challenge moon, you go right around to this area, and start the timer challenge, and then it ends over there. You warp back to the Odyssey. The 2D moon, right around this area underneath the crevasse, same idea. You get all the moons. Reverse order might be a little bit faster for this one. So you like start off with the wriggling moon, then go to the top, then go to Toad, then the Hintart, then the Tourist, then you go over to the 2D moon pipe. Then again, you warp from the 2D section over to the Odyssey and Globe. Whoopsies. Why are we doing salt triple in the beginner tutorial? Take the cannon. I actually disagree with that, so I will cover that though. So the intended way to do this sub area is by, instead of going over here, you take this cannon. I genuinely think what Dylan does here is easy enough for beginners. It's a little bit more risky, so if you're trying to eliminate risk, take the cannon, but if you jump high, uncapture at the peak of the jump, then really delay your cap throw, then dive, you're going to make it with plenty of time to spare. Then you can do a jump to get off the platform and capture this again. It's not that bad. But that is the backup. Thank you, chat, for pointing that out. I would not have remembered that exists. So important thing to note, make sure you don't kill that fire bro. It's easy to drop him in the lava. Don't do that, because if you end up messing up the lanterns, it takes a long time for him to respawn. You can always capture a lava bubble and light the flame that way, but it's a lot slower. I discovered that strat. I never found it easy when I implemented it. Fair enough. So if for whatever reason you do a different route, this is... What's going on? It'd be like this sometimes, though. I feel the pain. That would be where you get the Goombat Moon and Munchkin too. So now, moving on to this Toad, it's, I guess, I might have forgotten. No, I did say it's track 56. Here, the fastest track to use is track 4. That is just 4 downward presses on the D-pad. Sorry, 3 downward presses on the D-pad. Pardon me. So here's another backup moon. We only ever get 1 moon in the sub area because the shards moon is slow. However, if you're ever down a moon, it is fast to get these shards as a backup. It's honestly one of the better backups in the game. However, Dylan knows of an even faster backup that is at the very end of this run that he can use to save this Peach issue. So additionally, if you mess up getting the fire piranha earlier, you can get it later on in the run here. Just remember in Luncheon 1, if you mess that up, you will need to get the Salt Triple Moon in order to get enough moons to leave Luncheon 1. So here, you can damage boost. Sometimes you'll have to take 2 damage, but it is faster than trying to do an old strat where you triple jump across the gap and time it so that Cappy comes back to you in the middle of it. That's not worth doing. Instead, we just do this and then whip over here. I've actually never seen this movement done before. I know that it's the new fastest route, but I have never actually done it before. It's kind of cool. So, does Dylan do cracks? Probably does. I think cracks in the beginning route. But either way, so you do all the cracks are fixed, and then I suppose this isn't a route. I don't, it probably is. I don't remember. But either way, note that he saves this checkpoint in case he RNG takes damage to one of the vegetables there. Now he has full health because checkpoints refill your health, and he doesn't have a damage refill cutscene when he grabs this. And this is the backup moon that he gets instead of Peach. Lucky son of a, nice. Okay. He managed to luck out and not take damage to the Pambros, and now does this foodie skip trick jump to get over there. If you're ever down a moon, don't worry about doing that. It's not necessary at all. Just take it slow, ride on the platform. If you're feeling feisty, maybe try one foodie skip attempt, but yeah. And here we are. Now we're on Mushroom 2. And we're almost done with the run. This movement's a little bit weird. If you're ever struggling with it, genuinely just go inside the frickin' chimney and and turn off the campfire with Cappy and then wall jump up the middle. It's annoying to do that and back it up, but yeah. So to start this route, we have another music toad. I think this one, yeah, you just go down 2 to the third one. I forget these things because I'm an all moons runner now. We scroll down 8 like plebeians. But here's our last tourist of the run. We got another one in Luncheon. Make sure that you get these in the correct order, otherwise you're going to be regretting it. This is a random comment, but a few of these shop exits, normally you see an animation of Mario walking out of the shop, and then you can buffer some action afterwards. Mushroom and Lost are shops where that doesn't happen. So I don't know. But now we collect those seed moons we planted earlier, as well as the bunny. Also, I've never mentioned this, but this run is played in traditional Chinese. It's currently known to be the fastest language for any percent. I don't believe it's been tested for Darker Side or All Moons, but it is just generally assumed that it is also the fastest language for both of those two runs. I'm realizing now, is there an alternative to the Goombet jump? I sort of don't think there is. So this is something that you might just have to learn straight up, because this trick is not very easy, and it is essential because you need all Goombet moons. So basically the way that the Goomba jump works is if you land on a sloped surface, you get extra speed when you jump. So Dylan barely makes it right there because he lands on not the optimal slope, but you want to go down, and then I would also not recommend doing a normal Goomba jump. I would do a shake Goomba jump when you land. You can sort of buffer the shake and get a timing down for as soon as the Goomba lands, you do a shake jump and go over there. So if you fail, you kind of just got to do it. You grab Goombet and then go right back down and get going again. It's a tough one. You grab another Goomba and then do it again. So I actually want to touch on something that I don't think many people know about or even consider, because it's more of an all moons thing. So first things first, if you're down on captures, Yoshi is a good one. Yoshi is a very good capture to get if you're ever down on captures. Second of all, I think that Yoshi moons are really not that bad of backups. So you capture Yoshi there, and then if you're ever down on 2 moons, I don't think it's ever worth getting 3. Then you can get a bunch of the fruits around the castle. There's enough fruits around the castle so that you can just grab 1 extra moon and then enter, and then be good to go. Anything more is a little bit fishy, and you might not know where all the apples are, but just getting 1 is okay, and getting 2 is probably also okay, but you have to be careful. Definitely cannot get 3, though. So now we have Toadette. I say it right the third time. Now we have Toadette. I don't know exactly the number of Toadette moons you need, but the way you know that is in Luncheon 2, whenever you globe, Luncheon 3, whenever you globe, and go to it, whenever you go to Luncheon 3, keep a mental note of the number of moons you have in the Odyssey, then you will collect moons from Toadette until you have the right number of remaining moons in the top left corner. So actually, I can check this on my phone really quickly, and you could go back in your VOD and check if you're ever doing this in a real run. Let's see. So we're at 437 moons entering Luncheon. So that means we need 63 moons on the Toadette counter when we're done with this. Or wait, am I stupid? Am I looking at the wrong kingdom? Yeah, I think that's right. But anyway, if Toadette stops giving you moons before you have gotten the correct number of Toadette moons, there is the best backups you can get are 1 Yoshi. I think that's faster than the next one I'm going to mention, but you can get either 1 or 2 Yoshi moons, or you can get the Rocket Flower. Sorry, you can get the 2D pipe by Mushroom 2D Well. I am getting bored. If you're ever bored during this, play Rock, Paper, Scissors with Mario. We're instead going to frickin' 2x speed. I don't want to just fast forward through this part because I would rather have the entire run showcased in this, but I'm okay with 2x speed. Now would have been a smart time. I'm not prepared to do this, unfortunately, but now would have been a smart time to go over the tools that we have to help you learn the route. But I'll just do that as soon as we're done with Darker Side. So this should be the 63rd. So now you warp to the Odyssey, and we go back to normal speed. So, in all honesty, Darker Side has some strategies, but I would genuinely just recommend, if you're going to run this category, you have to learn Glide on Skip, but beyond that, you just got to figure out movement that works for you for the rest. If I put my moons in the Odyssey and see that I miss 1 or 2 or 3, what should I do? So first of all, the goal is to prevent that from happening. I'm going to pause. The goal is to prevent that from happening the way I mentioned. Remember how many moons you have going into into Luncheon 3. That way, when you're ending Mushroom 2, you can be like, okay, I need to have 63 moons right now because I entered Luncheon 3 with 437 moons. That means I need 63 right here. Just do the 500 minus 437. Then, if you see, oh shoot, I only have 61 moons right now. I need to get 2 extras. Then your best options are Yoshi, and you can get 2 of those moons at max. I'd only really recommend getting 1, but 2 of those at max, and then the 2D Notes Moon by the 2D Well. Those are your 2 options, and that's what you can really do. But honestly, Neo is more correct, and it might be better just to give up on life. If you're feeling really down in the dumps, just get Mushroom KFR. It's a 12-second moon. That's pretty fast. But here's Darker Side. This beginning movement is the best and very beginner friendly. Big fan of that pipe suck. Just doing a little boost there. So again, like I was saying, this is the type of thing where there's no real trick to this part. This part there is a slight trick. First of all, you can use the momentum from the bounce there, but whenever you're jumping between these 2 little pockets, you need to make sure you have some forward momentum first. Otherwise, you're not going to make it to the next one, and you're going to need to capture a new lava bubble. And then when you're in midair, make sure you turn your camera forward. I'll point it out. So he has his camera angled down here. And then now he angles his camera up and is pointing it towards that uproot. That way it spawns in earlier and is there for him when he uncaptures the lava bubble and goes over there. So now he's going to boost with the uproot over here and come over this area. This is the fastest strat. However, it is not the safest strat. If you want a safer strategy, come over to this side of Darker Side. Go like that way and go up top. Then you can uproot boost to the top of a question block and go on top of the thing. If you want to see an example of this being done, consult an All Moon speedrun at the end. When they do Darker Side, they go that direction. Going over the top is a lot safer, only loses about 3 seconds, and is a lot easier in my opinion. Instead, what Dylan will do is he'll go through this freezing waterway section, which is good to know how to do. It is very good to know how to do this in case for some reason you mess up. First of all, note that he angled his camera down when he entered it. Still angled down, does a wall jump, and now he comes over here and is A-okay for this part of the speedrun. But good to know how to do this. I would not recommend doing this in a beginner run. I really hate this camera manip, but if you want to do it, feel free. I just think that it's really stupid and you're likely to take damage. But it's faster to tongue when you're going up walls because Yoshi gains a little bit of height every time you do it. And why are we going for FRS in the beginner tutorial? Don't do this. Okay, man. Dylan's a funny guy. Nolan's a funny guy. But yeah, you can just skip doing all of that and just take the flower road and lose 3 seconds, maybe 5 if you're doing really well. I mean, you'll have to learn it eventually. You just don't, though. Like, you simply do not. You also don't need to do this. You can just carry the thing to the top. That one's less egregious than this. This is the one you need to learn. So figure out early. Basically, turn the camera down and shake as soon as you enter into the wind gust. Then you'll get enough height to boost over all of the rest of this bull crap and get past all the hardest part of Darker and just go right to the end. Figure out how to do this, you're set for life. You don't need to practice Darker that much at all. It becomes a much easier split, which is honestly kind of sad, but it's okay. So there, Dylan does you skip. Very riskless trick, but if you do fail, it's a little bit of a time loss, only like 4.5 minutes. So maybe don't do that, but it's an option. So another thing to learn is the frog jump heights. So actually, I'll slow down the end of this run. You know, why not? Let's just not get this over with. So whenever you're jumping with the frog, there's a few different heights you can do. First of all, whenever you're moving, you're going to get a slightly higher jump. So there's a few different jump types. There's one, stand still, don't hold A. That'll give you only a little bit of height. I don't think it'll even clear this gap. Then there is move forward, hold A. That'll give you a good chunk more height, but won't give you the most height you can get. Sorry, move forward, don't hold A. Then after that, there is stand still, don't hold A. Sorry, stand still, hold A. That'll be the primary jump that you use when climbing this wall. Then there is move and hold A. That'll give you a little bit of extra height over staying still and holding A. Then there are shake jumps while not moving and while moving, and those will give you varying numbers of heights. So you'll all call out when we use each of these throughout the climb. So first of all, this is a moving jump, not holding A. This is a moving jump, not holding A. This is a still jump, holding A. This is a moving shake jump. This is a moving shake jump. And this is a moving shake jump. And that gives you the most possible height, and then you can finish the split by doing this. And Dylan finishes that incredibly beginner speedrun with a 3:06. Very, very, very fast time using exclusively beginner routes, beginner strategies, and not even doing the route fully correctly. Switch 2 probably made this a little bit faster, made it from a 3:09 down to a 3:06, but very, very fast speedrun. Good stuff from Dylan, and hey, you too can get a sub 3:10 in Mario Odyssey Darker Side. Hopefully that helped, and yeah. Let's go over some of the tools we have to help you learn the route. So, let's see. Let's go back here. So, here we go. First of all, we have, as mentioned earlier, the beginner/intermediate Darker Side route. This is the route that does not use IP skip and does not do the outfit reroute. So, I would recommend that if you're starting to learn this, I would honestly start with this. The main prerequisites are you do need to learn how to do IP clip, not skip, IP clip, the one where you go through the wall in the inverted pyramid at the beginning of Sand 1, and then that you learn one of the clips to skip the story progression in Snow. I would recommend learning screen clip. Those are the two things that you need to learn in order to learn this route. Then I would go through each of these kingdoms one by one, learn all the kingdoms, then do your first run. Just go through once or twice and do your first run. Then once you've done your first run, you'll be like, okay, I failed this, I was not confident at this movement, I can practice this. The nice thing about this PowerPoint is you also have moon counts at the bottom right-hand corner of every time you're leaving a split. So when you exit Metro, you're like, okay, I need 80 moons. Why don't I have 80 moons? Where did I miss a moon? Basically, all you could do is this. and on and on and on. One thing I'm considering talking to the PowerPoint editors about is noting where there are potential backup moons you could get in this route. That way, if you want to change your route, it's more clear how you could do so. On the topic of changing your route, we'll go over to the darker side route creation tool. So whenever you visit the Discord, there is a really, really handy sheet that has a bunch of moons on the left, and if you check them, the number of total moons out of 500 will change. So right now we're looking at Tyrone's 258.44 world record route, and if we, for example, untick IP skip, this means, okay, now we're doing IP clip, we're going through the inverted pyramid, now our moon count total goes up by 2. And then you can fiddle with clicking these guys on or off, and then this moon count will change, and you can see, okay, this will increase or decrease the number of moons I need to get. So, alongside this, alongside just the total moons, number 502, and all this stuff, it also has 2D moons out of 10, captures out of 35, and then also a really, really nice, useful description of how the route changes whenever you do all of these things. So for IP skip, you would just simply do IP skip, and then you skip doing 2 moons, and you get miss 1 2D moon. Then it tells you in Sand 1, you do IP skip both into your pyramids, and one of which is the 2D moon. Then you can also tick on mechanic. That'll give you an extra total moon. And then it'll give you an error if something like this is checked when it shouldn't be. So this box should not be checked at the same time as the outfits box. If you're doing mechanic, that means you're already doing if you're doing the outfit route, that means you're already getting mechanic, so you shouldn't be doing both. But anyway, this is best to fiddle around with yourself. They have a lot of different route changes and all that stuff sort of intertwined. And if you have any questions on it, ask in the Discord, ask in the comments of this video. I'll be happy to answer any questions. So a couple more PowerPoints to showcase are, first of all, the picture route. So this is exactly the same, I think it's exactly the same as this route, but it has pictures. So if you're very new to this game, it'll tell you things to do. Checkpoint, topper, no moons. Then you go to Cascade, get some detergent. Checkpoint, power moon, yada yada. Go to sand, yada yada yada. You get the gist. It's a very nice thing put together by, who is this put together by? By Druz, yes. So, yeah. But after that, we've covered this, This is the advanced route. This has all of the top level strategies. It might not have late clip. Does it have late clip? Let's see. It does have late clip. So this is, I think, fully up to date as far as I know. So if you ever want to figure out, okay, what's the top level doing? Are they doing anything that I could like steal an extra couple of moons from? This is a good place to check. And then, well, this is also another good place to check for that, but just an example. And then lastly, here is a really, really big Google sheet of everything that has to do with Darker Side. So all the Toadette achievements are listed right here. Rescue Peach, World Peace, Power Moons, yada, yada, yada. Captures, where, let's see, where you can click on this and what does it show you even? Content no longer available. I don't know, whatever, it's fine. It tells you all of the Toadette achievements and which ones we get in this column. So for captures, we get 2 of these achievements, meaning we get 35 total captures. And then same deal with warp paintings, checkpoints, moon rocks, yada, 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 yada. Has a bunch of archived older routes, all the moons that you get in each individual kingdom. So this can also be very useful to study and see what people get. I don't think that the routes on this are currently up to date. Yes, it doesn't seem so because it doesn't have late clip, but still a good tool to use. So last thing, there is a list of all of the checkpoints. I feel like I actually made this. I don't remember. Anyway, but here's a list of all of the required checkpoints. This is going to annoy me. Can I, like, do I have edit perms? Control Z, Control C. Sorry about this. Paste special. Format only. Okay, I do have edit perms. I think this is my document. But this is a list of all of the required checkpoints in the run. I don't think it's up to date, but then it'll tell you, okay, these are the no time loss checkpoints. These are very little no time loss. These are little time loss. These are small time loss, slightly larger time loss, situationally suboptimal. So, and then there's an explanation for these, which one's bad. So, if you're ever not sure about checkpoints, these are good to think about. But yeah, I think we might have made the checkpoint one together. I think so. I think I remember doing that. But yeah, these are all of these files are going to be in the description of this video, and then also pinned in the darker side channel in the Mario Odyssey speedrunning Discord. I think it's fine for me to bring over my Discord server. Let me just double check, make sure I don't dox myself somehow. Yes, I'll do that. So basically you find this by joining the Mario Odyssey speedrunning Discord server. You could probably find that by just searching in the add a server feature, but I don't know about that one. Then in pinned messages, you'll find this link has the Toadette stuff, but I also think that Toadette stuff is in all of these guys. I'll copy and open this one at the very end. I didn't open this at the beginning, but this pinned message has everything open in this, and it's all you need to start learning Darker Side. So again, if you have any questions, comment it below on this YouTube video, ask a question in the hashtag Darker Side channel, and this voiceover Q&A section will probably close soon, so this is the best place to do it, but if it's still open, this is a good place to ask as well. But that'll about do it for this video, I think. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe. Haha. No, but being serious, actually comment if you have any questions. And yeah, thank you for watching.